The fluorescent lights of Conference Room 7 cast harsh shadows across the faces of 45 men who had seen hell and survived it. Fort Benning, Georgia, November 2017. Outside, the autumn sun was setting over the training grounds where generations of Rangers had earned their tabs. Inside, tension thick enough to cut with a K-bar knife filled the air.
Yes.
Captain Kira Brennan stood at the front of the room, 5'7", with
imaging.
controlled intensity in her pressed ACU uniform. 27 years old, West Point valedictorian, 2 combat tours in Afghanistan.
This is it.
The youngest
We're
company
almost
commander
there.
in the 75th
Stay
Ranger
sharp, Captain.
Regiment's
We've got
recent
this.
history. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, her green eyes steady as they swept across the assembled Rangers. Not a single man in that room wanted her there. The silence stretched. Somewhere in the back, someone coughed. Then came the sound that would define the next 3 weeks, a low chuckle, barely audible, but unmistakable in its contempt. Master Sergeant Roland Duggan rose from his seat in the third row. 6'2", shoulders like a linebacker gone to silver and steel. 63 years old with 41 years of service etched into every scar on his weathered face. 6 Purple Hearts, 3 Bronze Stars, 2 Silver Stars. A legend who had seen combat in more places than most of these men could name: Grenada, Panama, Desert Storm, Somalia, Bosnia, Iraq, Afghanistan. The kind of man who could silence a room with a look. "Ma'am," he said, his voice gravelly from decades of shouting orders over gunfire, "with all due respect, Command thinks a captain with 17 missions under her belt can lead us into Mosul." He paused, letting the number hang in the air. 17, that's a good start. I've got 284 combat operations. Most of the men in this room have over 100. This isn't a training exercise. The room shifted. Men sat straighter. A few nodded. The old guard sergeants and staff sergeants in their 40s and 50s watched Kira with expressions that ranged from skepticism to outright hostility. Kira didn't flinch. She clicked the remote in her hand. The projector screen behind her lit up with a satellite image of West Mosul, Iraq. Urban terrain, destroyed buildings, rubble-choked streets, the kind of nightmare environment where tactics meant everything and mistakes meant body bags. "Sergeant Major Dugan is correct," she said, her voice clear and measured. 17 missions, 0 casualties. She clicked again. A detailed tactical map appeared overlaid with timing sequences, approach vectors, and fire support coordinates. Operation Iron Resolve. Objective: extract 12 American contractors held by ISIS in this compound. Another click. Red highlighting showed a fortified structure in the industrial district. Intel indicates execution scheduled in 96 hours. We have 1 shot. She moved to the map, her movements precise. Heiho insertion is compromised. ISIS has acquired SA-24 manpads. High altitude drop puts us in their engagement envelope. Instead, we go low and fast. 4 MH-60 Blackhawks, terrain following flight, profile 80 feet above ground level. Insertion point here. She indicated a position 3 kilometers from the target. 3 elements. Element 115, Rangers including myself and Sergeant Major Dugan, approaches from the southwest through this residential corridor. Element 2 establishes overwatch positions on these 3 buildings. Element 3 secures the extraction route and maintains quick reaction force posture. Dugan crossed his arms. Air support. AC-130 gunship, call sign Reaper 61 on station at H hour. I'll be controlling all close air support missions directly. She pulled up another screen weapon, specifications, engagement zones, danger close protocols. 40mm cannon for precision strikes, 105 howitzer for hardened positions. Fire missions calculated to minimize collateral damage. Civilian density in this sector is estimated at 400 per square kilometer. A younger Ranger Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb, 32-3 tours, leaned forward. "Ma'am, you're planning to call danger close fire in an urban environment." "I'm planning to call fire where it needs to be," Kira replied, "within 50 meters of friendly positions if required. That's why the calculations matter." She gestured to the screen where ballistic data scrolled past wind speed, temperature gradients, structural integrity assessments. Every round accounted for, every impact zone mapped, every civilian evacuation route identified. The room was quieter now. Men were reading the data on the screen, seeing the level of detail, the precision. This wasn't a West Point textbook exercise. This was operator-level planning. Dugan's expression hadn't changed. "What's your contingency if the compound is fortified beyond current intel estimates?" "Then we adapt." Kira clicked to a series of alternative approaches. Primary breach point here, secondary here, tertiary here. Demolitions configured for 3 scenarios: light resistance, moderate hardening, and full fortification. Chemical analysis of the concrete suggests construction date between 2008 and 2011. Syrian-style reinforcement. Shaped charges with copper liner penetrators, 2.5 ounces of composition, 4 per charge focused blast pattern at 30-degree cone. She turned to face the room directly. Sergeant Major Dugan asked about my experience. He's right to ask. 17 missions. But in those 17 missions, I've called in 143 airstrikes. Every single one hit its target. Every single one kept my people alive. I don't have 40 years of experience, but I have 4 years of doing this specific job controlling fire from the sky while Rangers move on the ground. That's what this mission requires. The silence that followed was different, evaluative. Men were calculating, weighing, measuring. Roland Dugan stared at her for a long moment. Then he sat down without another word. Kira continued the briefing for another hour. Logistics, communications protocols, medical evacuation procedures, rules of engagement, every question answered with the same precision, the same depth of knowledge. When she finally dismissed them, the Rangers filed out in small groups, talking in low voices. Dugan remained seated until the room emptied. Then he stood and approached the front. Up close, Kira could see the lines around his eyes, the gray in his close-cropped hair, the old knife scar along his jaw from Mogadishu in '93. Captain Brennan, he said quietly, permission to speak freely. Granted, Sergeant Major. I knew your father. Kira's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. I know you did. Declan Brennan was the finest officer I ever served under. Bar none. When he died in Fallujah in 2004, I was 300 meters away, pinned down by machine gun fire, couldn't reach him. Dugan's voice was flat factual, but something moved beneath the words. I made him a promise before he bled out. I promised I'd look after his daughter. Make sure she stayed safe. I don't need looking after Sergeant Major. No, Dugan agreed. I'm starting to see that. But I also promised him something else. I promised if you ever wore the uniform, I wouldn't hold you back just because you're his daughter. That I'd judge you on your merits. He paused. 17 missions is still just a start, Captain. The men in this company have forgotten more about combat than most soldiers ever learn. They'll follow orders. But respect, that's earned in blood and sweat. You haven't earned it yet. Kira met his gaze steadily. Then I'll earn it, Sergeant Major. Starting now. Dugan almost smiled. Almost. Your father said the same thing to me in 1989 when he was a butter bar lieutenant fresh out of West Point and I was a staff sergeant who thought he knew everything. I gave him hell for 6 months. He earned every bit of my respect. He turned to leave, then stopped. Training starts at 0500 tomorrow. Live fire exercises, urban warfare scenarios. Don't be late. I'm never late, Sergeant Major. This time Dugan did smile. Barely. Declan used to say that too. The Georgia sun hadn't cleared the horizon when Kira stood on the range at 04:45 hours watching her Rangers assemble. 45 men in full kit plate carriers loaded with ceramic plates, M4A1 carbines, sidearms, grenades, medical supplies. Combat load of 70 pounds. Average age 38. Average deployments 4. They looked at her and saw a captain who probably weighed 130 soaking wet. Gentlemen, Kira's voice carried across the range without shouting, for the next 3 weeks we train as we fight. 16-hour days, live ammunition, full combat simulation. By the time we board that C-17 to Iraq, every man in this company will know his job so well he could do it blind, deaf, and concussed. Questions. Silence. First drill. Building clearance. 4-man stacks. I want to see button hook entries, proper coverage, no flagging, no hesitation. Sergeant Major Dugan will demonstrate with first squad. For the next 6 hours, they ran drills. Again and again. Kira watched everything corrected. Everything demanded perfection. When a Ranger swept his muzzle across a teammate's back during a turn, she stopped the entire exercise. Specialist Morrison, you just flagged Corporal Matthews. In a real compound, that's how accidents happen. That's how good men die from friendly fire. Run it again. They ran it again and again and again. By 1200 hours, the Rangers were drenched in sweat despite the November chill. But the movements were tighter, cleaner, professional. Break for chow, Kira announced. Back here at 1300 for explosives training. The men trudged toward the mess hall. Kira remained on the range reviewing footage from the helmet cameras they'd worn during the drills. Roland Dugan approached carrying 2 meals ready to eat. You eat, Captain. Later. Eat now. He dropped one of the MREs on the table beside her laptop. Can't command if you pass out from low blood sugar. Kira glanced at him. You're not my mother, Sergeant Major. No, but I am your senior NCO, and I'm responsible for keeping you functional. He opened his own MRE beef stew, the good one. What do you see? She replayed a clip. Third squad entering a room. Morrison hesitates, just a fraction, creates a gap in the coverage. Webb sees it too. He's overcompensating, trying to cover Morrison's sector and his own. Leaves both of them vulnerable. Dugan nodded. I saw the same thing. How do you fix it? Work with Morrison on his footwork. Build his confidence. And remind Webb that trust means letting your teammates do their jobs, not trying to do everyone's job for them. Correct. Dugan spooned stew into his mouth. You have got a good eye, Captain. Tactical knowledge is solid, but knowledge isn't the same as experience. These men have been in firefights where everything went wrong, where the intel was bad and the quick reaction force didn't show, and they had to shoot their way out with nothing but guts and ammunition. That kind of experience, you can't teach it. You can only live it. I know that, Sergeant Major. Do you? Because there's going to come a moment in Mosul, and it always comes where the plan falls apart, where everything you brief doesn't matter anymore because the situation has changed. In that moment, these men need to trust that you won't freeze, that you'll make the call that keeps them alive. He set down the MRE pouch. Your father had that quality. First time I saw it was in Panama in 1989. We hit a compound and found twice the enemy we expected. Lieutenant Brennan didn't hesitate. Redirected the fire support, repositioned the squads, adapted in real time. Not a single Ranger lost. That's when I knew he was special. Kira was quiet for a moment. Then, how did he die? The official report said killed in action in Fallujah. But you were there. What really happened? Dugan's jaw tightened. Improvised explosive device hit our Humvee. Declan was in the lead vehicle. I was in the second. When the dust cleared, his vehicle was on its side burning. I tried to reach him. Couldn't. Enemy fire from 3 directions. By the time we secured the area, he stopped. He lasted long enough to ask about you. Wanted to know if you were safe, if you were okay. I told him you were. Then he made me promise. His eyes met hers. Declan knew you'd enlist. He knew you'd want to follow him. He made me promise I'd protect you. But he also made me promise I wouldn't coddle you. That if you had the talent, I'd help you become the soldier he knew you could be. And do I have the talent? I don't know yet, Captain, but I'm going to find out. The second week was worse. Dugan pushed them harder. Night operations, breach drills with live explosives, casualty evacuation under simulated fire, chemical response scenarios. Every possible thing that could go wrong in Mosul, they rehearsed. Kira ran every drill alongside her men. When they did a ruck march with 80-pound packs, she carried 80 pounds. When they did night infiltration exercises, she was on point. The younger Rangers men in their 20s and early 30s started to come around. Started to see that she wasn't asking them to do anything she wouldn't do herself. The old guard was harder to crack. Men like Staff Sergeant Vincent Hayes, 47, with 5 combat tours and a face like carved granite. Or Sergeant First Class Thomas Burke, 52, who'd been in the regiment since 1908 and had forgotten more about combat than most colonels ever learned. On the 10th day of training, they ran a hostage rescue scenario. Full mission profile, infiltration assault extraction, live ammunition role players acting as hostages and enemy combatants. Kira commanded from a tactical operations center, watching feeds from helmet cameras, controlling the simulated air support. It went perfectly for the first 8 minutes. Then the scenario supervisor threw in a curveball, simulated IED explosion, 3 Rangers wounded, hostile reinforcements incoming. Kira's voice came over the radio, calm and clear. Element 1, this is Eagle Actual. Hold position. Do not advance. Element 2, shift south, establish suppression fire on Building 6. Element 3, move to grid November, Quebec 7429er. Prepare for casualty evacuation. The Rangers moved. Fast, smooth, professional. Kira coordinated the simulated airstrikes. Reaper 6-1 Eagle, actual request, fire mission, grid, November, Quebec 743. When troops in contact, danger close. How copy? The gunship simulator confirmed. Eagle actual, good copy. 40 Mike on the way. The scenario played out over the next 7 minutes. Kira orchestrated it like a symphony. Fire support here, maneuver element there, casualty of evacuation along this route, extraction at this landing zone. When the scenario ended, all hostages recovered, all wounded, evacuated, 0 friendly casualties. The after-action review was held in the debriefing room. Kira stood at the front, pulling up footage, analyzing decisions. At the 8-minute mark, the IED changed everything. Element 1 was fixed in place by casualties and couldn't advance. The textbook solution is to call in supporting fires and push through. But in an urban environment with civilians present, that risks collateral damage. Instead, I shifted Element 2 to create a base of fire, allowing Element 3 to flank and establish an evacuation corridor. Staff Sergeant Hayes spoke up. Ma'am, that maneuver exposed Element 3 to fire from 2 directions. In a real fight, that's how you get people killed. In a real fight, Kira replied. Element 3 would have had cover from Reaper's 40mm cannon. The timing was calculated to suppress enemy positions exactly as Element 3 moved through the danger area. Watch. She played the footage. The simulated airstrike hit precisely as the Rangers moved. Perfect timing, perfect coordination. Hayes frowned. That requires split-second coordination between air and ground. If the gunship is even 2 seconds late, then people die. Which is why I practice this constantly. Why I know the ballistics, the flight times, the variables. She pulled up a data screen. At slant range 2,000 meters, 40mm rounds have 4.2 seconds time of flight. Factor in radio delay, human reaction time, you need to call the mission 5 seconds before impact. I called at 08:47:23. Impact at 08:47:28. Element 3 crossed at 08:47:29. 1 second after impact. Perfect timing. The room was silent. These men had worked with Air Force Joint Terminal attack controllers who called in airstrikes for a living. They knew how difficult the job was, how much could go wrong, and this captain was claiming she could do it with split-second precision. Roland Dugan stood. Simulation is one thing, ma'am. Real combat is another. The gunship might be off station. The weather might be bad. The timing might slip because the pilot has to adjust for wind. Can you adapt when reality doesn't match the plan? There's one way to find out, Sergeant Major. Let's run it again. Same scenario. But this time you control the gunship. Make it as difficult as you want. Delayed responses, communication failures. Whatever, I'll adapt. Dugan's eyes narrowed, then he nodded. Reset the scenario. I'm on the gunship simulation. They ran it again. This time Dugan made everything hard. He delayed fire missions by random intervals. He simulated communication static. He made the gunship, Winchester, out of ammunition halfway through the scenario, forcing Kira to adapt without air support. She adapted. When the gunship went Winchester, she immediately shifted tactics, redirected the elements, used existing cover differently, created overlapping fields of fire that didn't require air support. The mission still succeeded. Hostages recovered. Casualties evacuated. When it ended, Dugan walked to the front of the room. He studied the footage for a long moment. Then he turned to face the assembled Rangers. Gentlemen, he said quietly, I've been doing this job since most of you were in diapers. I thought I'd seen everything. I was wrong. He looked at Kira. That was some of the finest tactical coordination I've witnessed in 41 years. Captain Brennan, you have a gift for this. A real gift. Something shifted in the room. You could feel it. The old guard, Hayes Burke, the senior sergeants, they looked at Kira differently now. Not quite respect yet, but recognition. Acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, she knew what she was doing. Kira nodded once. Thank you, Sergeant Major. Now let's run it again, because in Mosul we only get one shot, and I don't plan to waste it. The range qualification happened on day 14, standard Ranger marksmanship evaluation, M4 carbine at ranges from 50 to 300 meters. Then the optional advanced test long-range precision with the M110 semi-automatic sniper system. Most Rangers didn't bother with the advanced test. It was designed for designated marksmen, not line infantry. But Kira signed up for it. Dugan watched from the observation tower as she took position behind the rifle. 7.62mm NATO round, effective range of 800 meters. Today's targets, steel silhouettes at 800, 1,000, and 1,200 yards. The wind was gusting at 12 miles per hour from the northwest. Temperature 72 degrees. Humidity 35%. Not ideal conditions. Kira settled behind the scope. Her breathing slowed, steadied. She calculated windage in her head. 12 miles per hour at a 45-degree angle meant approximately 8.5 miles per hour of effective wind. At 800 yards, that translated to 3.2 minutes of angle. She adjusted the scope. First shot, the rifle bucked. 800 yards downrange, the steel target rang like a bell. Center mass. Second target, 1,000 yards. Heat mirage made the target shimmer. Kira waited for the air to settle, watching the mirage patterns, timing her shot for the brief moment of clarity. She squeezed. Another hit. Center mass. Third target. 1,200 yards. At that range, everything mattered. Wind temperature, bullet drop, the Coriolis effect from the Earth's rotation. She adjusted her aim point, compensating for 48 inches of bullet drop, accounting for the slight drift from the Earth's spin, leading the calculation with the precision of a mathematician. She fired. 3 seconds later, the time it took the bullet to travel 1,200 yards, the target went down. Perfect hit. On the observation tower, Staff Sergeant Hayes lowered his binoculars. Jesus Christ, did she just... Yeah, Dugan said quietly. She did. When Kira came off the range, Dugan was waiting. Where'd you learn to shoot like that, Captain? My father taught me Sergeant Major. Started when I was 8 years old. Every weekend we'd go to the range. He said if I was going to be a Brennan, I needed to know how to shoot. By the time I was 14, I was out shooting him. She paused. He made it a game. Wind calculations, distance estimation, reading mirage. He'd give me 1 round and 1 target and tell me to make it count. Said that's how real snipers worked, 1 shot, 1 kill, no second chances. Dugan's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Declan was the best natural shooter I ever knew. If you were beating him at 14, he trailed off. He never told me about that. Never mentioned you could shoot. He wanted me to have my own identity. Didn't want me riding his reputation. Kira's voice was matter of fact, but something in her eyes suggested deeper feeling. After Fallujah, after he died, shooting was the one thing that made sense. The one thing I could control. Trigger pull, breathing, wind calculation, all math, all physics, no emotions, no loss, just the precision. Your father was emotional, Dugan said. Cared deeply about his soldiers. That's what made him great. The math matters, Captain, but so does the human element. So does caring whether your people live or die. I care, Sergeant Major. That's why I practice until I can make shots like that in my sleep. Because when we're in Mosul and someone's life depends on an 800-yard shot in bad conditions, I need to know I can make it. Caring isn't enough. Competence is what keeps people alive. Dugan studied her for a long moment. Your father used to say the same thing. Dugan, he'd tell me, caring keeps you awake at night. Competence brings everyone home. He was right. And so are you. 72 hours before deployment, everything changed. Kira was in her office reviewing final logistics when her computer chimed. Encrypted message from CIA liaison. She opened it, read it again. Her jaw tightened. Then she grabbed her cover and headed for the company area at a run. She found Dugan in the arms room inspecting weapons. Sergeant Major conference room. Now, bring your senior squad leaders. 5 minutes later, 8 men sat around the table. Kira stood at the front, her face grim. Intel just came through. Our mission is compromised. ISIS knows we're coming. The room erupted. Voices overlapping, how when who leaked it, quiet. Kira's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Details are unclear. Most likely source is our Iraqi government liaison. He's been detained for questioning. But the damage is done. ISIS has moved the hostages from the original compound. New location unknown. Time until execution has been moved up. We now have 48 hours instead of 96. Staff Sergeant Burke leaned back in his chair. So we abort. Call it off. We can't rescue hostages if we don't know where they are. We can if we find them. In 48 hours in a city of 2 million people, ma'am, with respect, that's impossible. Kira turned to the laptop on the table. Not impossible. Difficult. There's a difference. She pulled up satellite imagery. For the last 96 hours, National Reconnaissance Office has been tracking cell phone traffic patterns in West Mosul. ISIS uses encrypted phones, but they still generate metadata tower pings, connection durations, movement patterns. I've been analyzing the data, looking for anomalies, clusters of encrypted traffic that move together, groups of phones that only communicate with each other. She highlighted several areas on the map, 3 possible locations, all industrial areas, all with the right structural characteristics, thick walls, multiple exits, clear sight lines for defense. But one stands out. She zoomed in on a section of the map. This location, an abandoned electronics factory. Here's why power consumption data shows the building is drawing electricity despite being supposedly abandoned. Thermal satellite shows heat signatures consistent with 40 to 50 people. And cellular metadata shows a cluster of 20 encrypted phones that arrived at this location 6 hours ago and haven't moved since. Dugan studied the map. Confidence level tomorrow, 85%, possibly 90. And if you're wrong, then 12 Americans die and we've wasted our only chance. Kira's voice was steady. But I'm not wrong. This is where they are. The pattern matches ISIS doctrine for high-value prisoner holding. The timing matches their operational security protocols. The infrastructure supports their requirements. This is it. The senior NCOs exchanged glances. This was the moment Dugan had warned her about. The moment when the plan fell apart and she had to make the call based on incomplete information and gut instinct backed by analysis. Sergeant First Class Burke spoke carefully. Ma'am, 85% isn't certainty. That's 15% chance we're wrong. 15% chance we hit the wrong building and alert ISIS to our presence, getting the hostages executed immediately. You're correct. That's the risk. But doing nothing is 100% chance they die. Kira looked at each man in turn. I've spent 18 hours analyzing this data. I've cross-referenced cell phone patterns with power consumption, with thermal imaging, with ISIS tactical doctrine, with known safe house architecture, with prisoner handling procedures. Every piece of information points to this location. Every data point confirms it. It's not certainty, but it's as close as we're going to get in the real world. Dugan stood and walked to the map. He studied it for a long moment, his finger tracing the streets, the approaches, the structure itself. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. Your father once told me something. He said sometimes in combat you don't get perfect information. You get what you can, you make the best analysis possible, and then you commit fully. Half measures get people killed. Hesitation gets people killed. Once you choose a course of action, you go all in. No doubts, no second guessing. Total commitment. He turned to face Kira. Are you all in on this, Captain? Yes, Sergeant Major, I am. Then so am I. He looked at the senior NCOs. Get your squads ready. We deploy in 36 hours. Captain Brennan has done her homework. She's done the analysis that most officers wouldn't even know how to start. Now we do ours. We train for this target. We prepare for this mission. And we bring those 12 Americans home. The men filed out. Dugan remained behind. When the room was empty, he said, that was a hell of a gamble, Captain. It wasn't a gamble. It was analysis, mathematics, pattern recognition, intelligence fusion. Call it what you want, but you just staked 12 American lives and 45 Rangers on that analysis. You better be right. I am. Your father was confident too. Sometimes he was right, sometimes he wasn't. The times he wasn't. Dugan's voice trailed off. In Fallujah, he was confident we'd secured the route. Confident there were no IEDs. He was wrong. It cost him everything. Kira's eyes hardened. I'm not my father, Sergeant Major. I'm better, more careful, more analytical, more precise. I don't rely on instinct alone. I verify, I cross-check, I confirm. And when I say I'm 85% confident, that's not bravado. That's statistical analysis based on multiple independent data sources, all pointing to the same conclusion. The words hung in the air. Bold, arrogant even. But there was no bravado in her voice, just cold certainty backed by mathematical precision. Dugan studied her for a long moment, then slowly he nodded. Declan said the same thing to me once, in 1989 before Panama. Said he was better than his instructors, better than his training, better than anyone gave him credit for. I thought he was full of shit. Then I saw him in combat and realized he was right. He moved toward the door. He was right, and I think you are too. I hope you are too, because in 48 hours we're going to find out. 24 hours before Wheels Up, Kira stood alone on the range as the sun set. Tomorrow night at this time they'd be over the Atlantic. The day after they'd be in Iraq. The day after that they'd be in Mosul, betting everything on her analysis. She heard footsteps behind her. Dugan. Always Dugan. Couldn't sleep, Captain. Thinking. About all the things that can go wrong. About the responsibility. 45 men, 12 hostages, all depending on my analysis being correct, all trusting that I didn't miss something in the data, that I didn't make a mistake in the calculations. She was silent for a moment. How did you handle it, the weight of command? You never handle it, you carry it. Every decision, every casualty, every time you send men into danger, every time someone doesn't come home. He stood beside her looking out at the darkening range. After Declan died, I blamed myself for years. Thought I should have seen the IED, should have insisted on a different route, should have refused to let him lead that convoy. Carried that guilt like a stone tied around my neck, pulling me down. But you kept serving, kept leading. How? Because I realized something. Declan wouldn't want me carrying guilt. He'd want me to learn from it, use it, make me better, turn his death into something that kept other soldiers alive. He paused. So that's what I did. I took that pain and I turned it into knowledge, into experience, into wisdom, into the ability to keep other soldiers alive. That's the only way I could honor his memory, by making sure his death meant something. Do you still think about him? Every day, every single day for 13 years. Dugan's voice was rough. He was my best friend. More than that, he was my brother. When he died, part of me died too. But another part of me, the part he helped create, the soldier he helped me become, that part got stronger. That's his legacy. That's what endures. Kira was quiet for a long time. Then, tomorrow we board that plane. Day after tomorrow, we hit that compound. If my analysis is wrong, men will die. Good men. Rangers. Your men. Our men, Dugan corrected. They're your company now, Captain. Your responsibility. And yes, if you're wrong, men might die. That's command. That's leadership. That's the burden you accepted when you pinned on those bars and took the oath. He turned to face her. But I've watched you for 3 weeks now. Watched how you think, how you prepare, how you analyze, how you calculate, how you demand excellence from yourself before you demand it from others. I've seen your tactical acumen, your ability to adapt, your refusal to accept anything less than perfection. He paused. You remind me of Declan, but you're not him. You're something different, something maybe better, because you combine his tactical brilliance with a level of analytical precision I've never seen before. Declan trusted his instincts. You verify your instincts with mathematics. That makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Is that confidence, Sergeant Major, or hope? Both, and something else, knowledge. I know good officers. I know great officers. And in 41 years, I've served under maybe 5 officers I'd call exceptional. Officers who changed how I understood leadership. Your father was one. And Captain Brennan, he met her eyes. You're another. Those men getting on that plane tomorrow, they're going to be okay. Because you're going to bring them home, all of them. I believe that. Kira felt something in her chest tighten. Relief, validation, permission to trust herself. Thank you, Sergeant Major. Don't thank me. Prove me right. He turned to leave, then stopped. Declan used to come out here before deployments. Stand right where you're standing. Said it helped him think. Helped him prepare mentally for what was coming. Helped him make peace with the risk. He pulled something from his pocket, a small compass of wrist worn smooth from years of handling. This was his. He carried it on every deployment. I took it off his body in Fallujah. Was going to give it to you when you turned 18, but you joined the army at 17. Figured I'd wait until you earned it. He held it out. Kira took it, her fingers closing around the warm metal. She opened the compass. Inside, the lid engraved in neat script, True North Honor, Duty Country, DBK. He believed in those words, Dugan said, lived by them, died for them. And if I'm right about you, Captain, you believe in them too. Kira's vision blurred. She blinked hard, forcing the emotion down. I won't let you down, Sergeant Major. I won't let him down. I know you won't. Dugan's voice was gentle. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow we fly. Day after tomorrow we show ISIS what Rangers do to people who kidnap Americans. He walked away, leaving Kira alone with her father's compass and the weight of everything to come. She stood there as darkness fell, thumb running over the engraved words. True North, honor, duty, country. The principles that had guided her father. The principles that had gotten him killed. The principles she'd chosen to follow anyway because they meant something. Because some things were worth dying for. Tomorrow, 45 Rangers would board a C-17. They'd fly across the ocean to a war zone. They'd trust her with their lives. Trust her analysis. Trust her judgment. Trust her to bring them home. She wouldn't fail them. Couldn't fail them. Behind her, the lights of Fort Benning sparkled against the night sky. Generations of Rangers had trained here. Generations of warriors had stood where she stood, feeling the same weight, the same responsibility, the same mixture of fear and determination. Her father had stood here. Sergeant Major Dugan had stood here. Now she stood here. And in 48 hours, she'd prove she belonged. Kira closed the compass and slipped it into her pocket. Then she turned and walked toward the barracks, her shadow stretching long across the range in the lamplight, a solitary figure preparing for war. The C-17 Globemaster III sat on the tarmac like a gray whale engines humming. November 28, 2017. 0400 hours. The air was cold breath steaming in the pre-dawn darkness. 45 Rangers loaded their gear. Weapons, ammunition, body armor, medical supplies, demolitions. Everything they'd need to hit a fortified compound in hostile territory and pull 12 Americans out alive. Kira stood at the base of the ramp watching her men board. Each one nodded to her as they passed. Some with confidence, some with lingering doubt, all with the grim professionalism of soldiers heading into combat. Dugan was last. He stopped beside her. "Company loaded, Captain, ready to deploy." "Thank you, Sergeant Major." She looked at him. "For everything. The past 3 weeks, the training, the honesty, the trust. My father was lucky to have you as a friend." "I was the lucky one, ma'am. Declan Brennan taught me more about leadership in 3 years than I learned in the previous 20. And now," he smiled slightly, "now his daughter's about to do the same thing. Funny how that works, how excellence transfers from generation to generation." They boarded together. The ramp closed behind them with a hydraulic whine. Inside the aircraft, Rangers sat in 2 rows along the fuselage equipment piled in the center. The engines roared. The C-17 began to taxi. Kira took a seat near the front, checked her gear one final time. M4 carbine clean and oiled, sidearm loaded, radio tested, her father's compass secure in her pocket. The aircraft turned onto the runway. The engines reached full power. Acceleration pushed them back into their seats. The nose lifted. The wheels left the ground. They were airborne, heading east, toward the Atlantic, toward Iraq, toward Mosul, toward a compound that may or may not hold 12 Americans, toward a mission that would either validate her analysis or destroy her career and cost lives. Across the cargo bay, Dugan caught her eye. He nodded once, slow, deliberate, a gesture that meant, "I trust you. We trust you. Don't let us down." Kira nodded back. She wouldn't. The C-17 climbed through the darkness, carrying its cargo of warriors toward war. And in her seat, Captain Kira Brennan closed her eyes and ran through the mission one more time. Every detail, every contingency, every calculation, every variable, every risk. 85% confidence, maybe 90. It would have to be enough. The heat hit them like a physical force when the ramp dropped. Iraq, Al-Assad Air Base, November 29, 2017, 1400 hours local time, 106 degrees Fahrenheit. The air tasted of dust and jet fuel and war. Kira led her Rangers off the C-17 into a landscape of tan earth, tan buildings, tan vehicles. Everything the same colorless shade of desert. The sky was white with heat. In the distance, heat waves made the horizon shimmer like water, like a mirage promising relief that didn't exist. A Humvee waited on the tarmac. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Stone, battalion commander, stood beside it. 52 years old. Desert Storm veteran. Face like carved leather from too many deployments in too many deserts. "Captain Brennan, welcome to the sandbox." "Sir," Kira saluted. "Company's ready to move." "Good, because we have a problem." Stone gestured to the Humvee. "Brief you en route to the Tactical Operations Center." The TOC was a climate-controlled trailer filled with computer screens, radio equipment, and tired-looking intelligence analysts who'd been working 20-hour shifts for weeks. Stone pulled up satellite imagery on the main display. "Your target compound, the electronics factory." He zoomed in. Thermal imaging from 2 hours ago confirmed multiple heat signatures, 47 bodies. "Consistent with your analysis, Captain. National Security Agency intercepted communications suggesting hostages are being held in the basement level. So far, your intelligence has been rock solid." "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet. The problem is here." He shifted the image east. "ISIS reinforcements. Approximately 60 fighters with technical vehicles. Toyota Hilux trucks with mounted 50 caliber machine guns. They arrived at this location 3 hours ago, half a click from your target. If they're still there when you hit the compound, your extraction route is compromised. You'll be running a fighting withdrawal through urban terrain with 12 civilians who probably can't run, can't fight, and will panic under fire." Dugan studied the screen. "Sir, what's our quick reaction force posture?" 2 MH-60s on standby for emergency extraction, 4 AH-64 Apaches for close air support if things go really bad, and your AC-130 gunship Reaper 6-1 on station at H hour. But Captain, if those technicals move to intercept during your exfil, even with air support, you'll be in a running gun battle. Casualties are probable. Mission failure is possible." Kira traced the map with her finger. The reinforcements are here. We insert here. Target is here. If we adjust our infiltration route to approach from the south instead of southwest, we stay out of their observation. Use these buildings for concealment. Adds 12 minutes to our movement time, but reduces detection risk significantly. Stone looked at her. You calculated that in your head just now? Yes, sir. Route distance increases from 3 kilometers to 4.2. At tactical movement speed of 20 meters per minute through urban terrain with full combat load, that's an additional 11.5 minutes. Round to 12 to account for unexpected obstacles. Christ, Stone shook his head. Okay, adjusted insertion it is. H hour is 0200 tomorrow morning. That gives you 8 hours to prep. Intel updates every 30 minutes. If anything changes, if those reinforcements move, if more fighters show up, if the hostages get moved again, you'll know immediately. He paused. Captain, those 12 Americans have been in ISIS custody for 19 days. They're counting on you. The president is counting on you. Don't let them down. I won't, sir. The brief was simple, direct, professional. But as Kira walked out of the TOC into the Iraqi heat, she felt the weight settle deeper. 19 days, 2 weeks plus 5 days of captivity. What had those hostages endured? What condition would they be in? Could they even walk, run? Would they panic during the extraction and get everyone killed? Dugan fell into step beside her. You okay, ma'am? Fine, Sergeant Major, just thinking. About all the variables I can't control, hostage physical condition, mental state, enemy response time, whether my 85% confidence is actually 90% or 70 or 60. Captain Brennan, Dugan's voice was firm, you can think yourself into paralysis. I've seen it happen to good officers, excellent officers. They get so worried about all the things that might go wrong that they hesitate when it's time to execute. Your analysis is solid, your plan is sound. Now you need to trust yourself and lead. That's what command means, making the call with incomplete information and living with the consequences. Like my father did. No, like you do. Declan led one way, you lead another. Both effective, both valid. Don't try to be him. Be yourself. Be the officer you've proven you are. He paused. Your father and I talked about this once, about the difference between confidence and competence. He said confidence is believing you can do something. Competence is having done it enough times that you know you can do it. You've called 143 airstrikes, Captain. Everyone's successful. That's not confidence. That's competence. That's proof. Trust it. Kira nodded slowly. Thank you, Sergeant Major. Don't thank me. Just bring us home. All of us. The Rangers spent the afternoon in final preparation, weapons checks, radio tests, reviewing building layouts, memorizing every detail of the target compound, studying the streets, the approaches, the fallback positions. Kira moved among them, answering questions, offering guidance, projecting the calm certainty they needed to see from their commander. At 2100 hours, she gathered the company for final brief. 45 men in full kit faces painted night vision goggles mounted on helmets. They looked like ghosts. Wraiths, angels of death prepared to descend on an unsuspecting enemy. Gentlemen, in 5 hours we launch. Our mission is simple: extract 12 Americans from ISIS captivity and bring them home. Our advantage is surprise superior training and air support. Their advantage is numbers and defensive position. We negate their advantages by moving fast, hitting hard, and staying disciplined. She clicked through images on the laptop. Insertion at 0200. 4 Blackhawks drop us here. 4.2 kilometer movement to target. Element 1, my element 15. Rangers will assault the main compound. Element 2 establishes overwatch positions here, and here. Element 3 secures the extraction route and maintains quick reaction posture. Questions? Staff Sergeant Webb raised his hand. Ma'am, contingency if the hostages aren't in the basement. Then we search the entire structure. But Intel has high confidence on basement location. 2 CIA sources plus signals intelligence plus thermal imaging. All confirm. They're there. They're alive. And in 6 hours, they're coming home with us. She looked at each man. I know some of you still have doubts about me, about this mission, about whether a 27-year-old captain can pull this off. That's okay. Doubt keeps you sharp. But when those ramps drop and we hit the ground, I need every one of you fully committed. No hesitation. No second guessing. We move as one unit with one purpose. Understand, hoo-ah, came the response, not loud. Not enthusiastic, but solid, professional. The responsive warriors who understood the stakes. At midnight, they boarded the Blackhawks. The helicopters sat on the tarmac with rotors turning, pilots running final checks, crew chiefs loading ammunition belts into door guns. Kira climbed into the lead bird with Dugan and 13 other Rangers. The crew chief gave a thumbs up. The pilot increased power. The skids lifted off the concrete. They flew low across the desert, 80 feet above the ground, fast. The landscape below was black except for occasional lights from villages. The helicopters flew in tight formation following terrain contours to avoid radar detection, trusting the pilots to keep them from flying into the earth. Kira sat in the doorway, whipping past, watching the desert scroll by. Beside her, Dugan sat motionless, eyes closed, not sleeping, centering, preparing mentally for what was coming. She'd seen him do this before every mission, a kind of meditation, a warrior's ritual. 20 minutes out, the pilot's voice crackled in her headset. Eagle Actual, 5 minutes to insertion. Copy. She switched to the company net. All elements, 5 minutes. Final weapons check. Stay frosty. The helicopters began to slow. The pilots flared, dropping altitude. Buildings appeared below the outskirts of Mosul. They flew between structures, rotors kicking up dust, downdraft rattling loose metal sheets on roofs, dog barking at the mechanical thunder overhead. The landing zone appeared a vacant lot between destroyed buildings. The Blackhawks descended in sequence. Skids touched earth. The crew chief slapped Kira's shoulder. Go, go, go! She jumped out, M4 at the ready, moving immediately to the nearest building for cover. Behind her, Rangers flowed from the helicopters in practice sequence. 15 seconds. All personnel clear. The Blackhawks lifted off, disappearing into the night, leaving them alone in enemy territory. Silence, broken only by wind and distant generators and the occasional bark of a dog. The smell of garbage and sewage and cordite from old battles. This was Mosul. This was war. Kira keyed her radio. Eagle Actual to all elements. Radio check. Element 2, good copy. Element 3, good copy. Element 1, we're moving. Stay alert. Stay alive. They moved through the city like shadows. Tactical column formation, 5-meter spacing, Rangers scanning sectors, covering angles, moving with the fluid efficiency of men who'd trained together for weeks and understood each other's movements without words. Kira moved near the front, with Dugan navigating using the GPS unit on her wrist and the night vision goggles that turned darkness into green-tinted daylight. Every intersection a potential ambush. Every alley a danger. Every window a possible sniper position. This was why they trained. This was why they drilled. So that when it mattered, when lives hung in the balance, they could move through hell itself without hesitation. 4.2 kilometers. Should take approximately 2 hours at tactical speed. But every step was measured. Every move was calculated. Rush and die. Hesitate and die. The only path to survival was perfect execution. At the 30-minute mark, Dugan held up a fist. The column halted instantly. He pointed a technical vehicle, Toyota Hilux, with mounted machine gun parked 200 meters ahead at an intersection. 2 ISIS fighters visible, one in the truck bed behind the gun, one leaning against the hood, smoking, relaxed, confident, not expecting death. Kira studied it through her night vision. She switched to Element 2's frequency. Overwatch, this is Eagle Actual. We have visual on 1 technical at grid November, Quebec 7456. Can you engage? The sniper team's voice came back calm and professional. Eagle Actual, negative. No angle from current position. Buildings blocking line of sight. Recommend bypass or ground engagement. Kira calculated. Bypass would add time and expose them to potential observation. Ground engagement would risk alerting the target compound if weapons weren't properly suppressed, but letting the technical remain in place risked it cutting off their extraction route later. Element 1, hold position. I'm taking 2 Rangers forward for close engagement. Suppressed weapons only, absolute silence. Dugan whispered, "Ma'am, that's my job. Let me take it." Negative, Sergeant Major. You command the element if something happens to me. I do this. Besides, she almost smiled, I'm smaller, harder to see. Before he could protest, she tapped 2 Rangers, both Special Operations combat medics, with advanced tactical training and extensive close quarters combat experience. Together, they moved forward, using buildings for cover, staying in shadows, closing the distance with patient measured steps. 100 meters, 50 meters, 25 meters. The ISIS fighters were relaxed, confident. They had no idea death was approaching on silent feet. The one smoking was telling a story in Arabic, gesturing, laughing. His partner listened bored, not paying attention to his sector. At 15 meters, Kira raised her M4. The suppressor made the weapon front-heavy but reduced the report to a mechanical click, barely louder than a cough. She aimed at the fighter behind the machine gun. Center mass, controlled breathing, squeeze, don't pull. The rifle clicked. The fighter dropped without a sound. His partner looked up, confused, not understanding what he was seeing in the darkness. Before he could react, the ranger to Kira's left fired. Another click. The second fighter collapsed. They moved forward quickly, checked both bodies, confirmed kills. Disabled the technical by removing the firing pin from the .50 caliber. 2 minutes. Clean, professional, silent, textbook execution. Kira keyed her radio, element 1 continue movement. Technical neutralized. The column moved past the disabled vehicle, following Kira deeper into the city, block by block, street by street, drawing closer to the target. The air grew heavier, more smoke, more destruction. This part of Mosul had seen heavy fighting. Buildings were skeletal ruins. Cars were burned-out hulks. The detritus of war littered every street. At 03:45 hours, they reached the final position, a destroyed apartment building, with good sight lines to the target compound. Kira and Dugan low-crawled to a window on the 3rd floor, careful to avoid skylining themselves. Below them, 200 meters south, sat the electronics factory. 3 stories, concrete construction, small windows reinforced with bars, single main entrance with a heavy gate, chain-link fence surrounding the perimeter. 2 ISIS fighters visible at the main gate, both alert now, both armed with AK-47s. The generator was running. Lights were on inside. Thermal imaging from the drone overhead showed heat signatures throughout the building, 47 bodies, just as Intel predicted. Basement level showed 12 signatures clustered together, minimal movement. The hostages. Kira pulled out her tablet and studied the real-time feed. Element 2 confirmed position. Element 2 and Position 3 overwatch points established. We have eyes on. Element 3. Element 3 holding at extraction point. Ready for movement on your call. Vehicles staged. Copy all. She switched to the AC-130 frequency. Reaper 6-1 Eagle actual. We are in position. Request immediate thermal scan of target building and surrounding 300 meters. I need to know if anything has changed since the last update. The gunship's sensor operator responded, Eagle actual scanning now. Stand by. Pause. Confirm 47 signatures in target building. Basement shows 12 bodies clustered, minimal movement, consistent with restrained individuals. Surrounding area shows no additional hostiles. Those 60 fighters you were worried about are still at their compound, half-click east. They haven't moved. Outstanding. Stand by for fire mission. Kira turned to Dugan. We have 15-minute window before sunrise starts to lighten the sky. Hit fast, extract faster. You ready, Sergeant Major? Born ready, ma'am. Question is, are you? We're about to find out. She keyed the company net. All elements, this is Eagle actual. We are go for assault. Element 2. I need suppressing fire on the main entrance in 30 seconds on my mark. Element 1, we breach the south wall on my mark. Reaper 6-1, I need a danger close 40 mic on the upper floors to disorient defenders but keep basement level clear. Acknowledge. Confirmations came back, rapid fire. Professional. Ready. Kira checked her watch, counted down. Element 1 moving in 3, 2, 1, execute. She exploded from cover with 14 Rangers behind her. They sprinted across open ground toward the factory. 200 meters of hell, completely exposed. If ISIS saw them now, it was over. But they had darkness. They had surprise. They had speed. At the gate, Element 2's machine guns opened up, suppressed but sustained fire that shredded the 2 ISIS guards and forced anyone inside to take cover. Glass shattered. Metal pinged. The gate collapsed. 100 meters. Kira's lungs burned, her legs pumped. Faster. Faster. She heard the AC-130 above. Eagle actual rounds away. Get down. She keyed her mic. All Element 1, get down now. The Rangers dropped, prone. 3 seconds later, the 40mm cannon shells began impacting. Precise. Controlled. Each round hit a specific window on the 2nd and 3rd floors. The explosions were sharp-focused, not demolishing the building, but creating chaos inside. Exactly as planned. Creating confusion. Fear. Disorientation. Perfect hits. Building standing. Civilians safe. 30 ISIS fighters on the upper floors either dead or stunned. Kira was up and running before the last round hit. Move, move, move. They reached the south wall. Staff Sergeant Morrison, the demolitions expert, slapped a breaching charge against the concrete 2.5 ounces of composition 4 in a shaped charge configuration. Charge set. Blow it. The explosion was sharp and directional. A perfect man-sized hole appeared in the wall. Smoke poured out. Kira was through it immediately. M4 up night vision showing the interior in green-tinted detail. Large room, empty machinery, concrete floor, high ceiling. 2 doorways leading deeper. Movement to her left. Her rifle came up reflexively. Muscle memory, training. ISIS fighter raising an AK-47, still stunned from the breaching charge. She fired twice. Both rounds center mass. The fighter dropped before he could get a shot off. Contact left, she called, moving forward, not stopping. Behind her, Rangers flowed through the breach like water, establishing a perimeter clearing, corners with practiced efficiency, each man knowing his job, his sector, his responsibility. Dugan was beside her instantly. Stairwell ahead. Basement access. They moved toward it. The building shook with explosions from above. Reaper 6-1 was still working, keeping ISIS pinned. But that also meant fighters would be flowing toward the basement away from the fire, seeking shelter underground. They'd be running right into the hostages. At the stairwell, Kira paused, listened. Footsteps below, shouting in Arabic. Panic. Fear. Good. Fear made mistakes. She pulled a flashbang from her vest. Frag out. She tossed it down the stairs. The grenade clattered on concrete. 2 seconds later, white light and deafening noise erupted from below. The flashbang detonated in the enclosed space, amplified, overwhelming. Go! Kira led the way down. The stairs were narrow, dangerous. Fatal funnel where one fighter with an AK could kill multiple Rangers. But the flashbang had bought them seconds. Precious seconds. She rounded the corner at the bottom. The basement was a long corridor lined with doors. At the far end, 2 ISIS fighters were recovering from the flashbang, shaking their heads, raising weapons. Kira fired on the move. 3-round burst. Professional. Controlled. The first fighter went down. She shifted aim without breaking stride. Another burst. The second fighter dropped. Basement corridor secured. Element 1, get down here. Rangers poured down the stairs. Dugan immediately began organizing them. First squad, clear these rooms. Second squad, security on the stairwell. Nobody comes down here. Third squad, with the captain. Let's find those hostages. They moved down the corridor, checking doors systematically. Storage rooms, empty offices, communications equipment. Evidence everywhere that this was an ISIS operational headquarters. But where were the hostages? Then they reached a heavy steel door at the end. Locked, reinforced. This was it. Kira pounded on it with her fist. American forces, if you can hear me, get away from the door. Move to the back of the room now. A voice from inside, weak, hoarse, unmistakably American. We're here, we're all here, 12 of us. Please, they're going to kill us. Relief flooded through her like electricity. They were alive, conscious, mobile enough to respond. They'd made it in time. Morrison moved forward with a thermite charge. This'll burn through the lock, hot and fast, 10 seconds. Everyone back. Do it. He placed the charge carefully. Everyone backed up. The thermite ignited, white-hot magnesium burning at 3,000 degrees. The lock began to glow, to melt, to drip molten metal onto the floor. The smell of burning metal filled the air. 8 seconds. The door began to warp from the intense heat. 10 seconds. Morrison kicked it. The door swung open on ruined hinges. Inside, 12 Americans. Contractors, engineers, and technicians. Ages ranging from late 20s to mid-50s. Dirty, exhausted, bearded. Some with visible injuries. Black eyes, split lips, bruises. But alive. All 12 alive. The oldest contractor, a man in his 50s with gray hair and a split lip, stared at Kira with disbelief. You're a woman. I'm a Ranger, and I'm getting you out of here. Can everyone walk? They could. Some needed support, but they were mobile. No stretchers required. That was good. That simplified everything. Element 1. This is Eagle Actual. Packages secured. 12 souls, all ambulatory. Beginning extraction now. Above them, the building shook with another explosion. Small arms fire echoed through the structure. ISIS was reacting, consolidating, preparing to counterattack. Time was running out. Dugan's voice on the radio, urgent. Ma'am, we've got movement on the first floor. 20+ hostiles coming down from the upper levels. They're going to hit the stairwell in 60 seconds. We can't hold them all back. Kira made the call instantly. Element 1, establish defensive positions at the stairwell. Element 2, I need suppressing fire on the north side of the building. Give them something else to think about. Element 3, bring vehicles to the south wall breach point. We're coming out hot in 2 minutes. They moved the hostages toward the stairs, as fast as possible. But 12 civilians who'd been imprisoned for 19 days, who'd been beaten and starved and traumatized, couldn't move like rangers. It was agonizingly slow. Every second felt like an hour. 30 meters from the stairwell, gunfire erupted above. Sustained, intense. Dugan's voice, contact. They're pushing hard, we need support. Kira positioned herself between the hostages and the threat. Keep them moving, I'm going forward. She sprinted toward the stairwell, emerged into a firefight. ISIS fighters were trying to force their way down the stairs. Dugan and 4 rangers were holding them back, but barely. The concrete walls sparked with ricochets. Muzzle flashes strobed in the darkness. The noise was deafening in the enclosed space. Kira raised her M4 and began firing controlled bursts. Professional, precise, aiming at the muzzle flashes at the silhouettes visible in the stairwell entrance. Beside her, Dugan was doing the same, his experience showing in every movement, smooth reloads, perfect trigger control, tactical awareness, eyes constantly scanning for threats. Captain, he shouted over this gunfire, we can't hold this. Too many of them, they keep coming. We don't have to hold, just buy time. She keyed her radio. Reaper 6-1 Eagle, Shul emergency fire mission. Grid November, Quebec, 7458, danger close. I need 40 Mike through the upper floors directly above my position. Bring the ceiling down on these bastards. Eagle actual, that's extremely danger close. You're right underneath the impact point. You need to clear the area immediately. Negative fire the mission. We'll deal with the danger fire now. Copy. Rounds away. Get down. Everyone down cover. The rangers and hostages hit the deck. Kira covered a hostage with her own body. 3 seconds that felt like eternity. Then the AC-130's cannon fire began impacting directly above them. The building shook violently. Dust and debris rained down. Somewhere above, something massive collapsed with a grinding roar that shook the earth. More explosions. More destruction. The ceiling cracked. Chunks of concrete fell. The gunfire from the stairwell stopped. Either the ISIS fighters were dead or they were trapped under rubble. Either way, the threat was neutralized. Move now. Kira was up, pulling hostages to their feet, pushing them toward the exit. Element 1 exfil through the breach. Go, go, go. They ran, through the basement corridor, up the stairs, through the ground floor where dust choked the air and fires burned. Out through the breach in the south wall where Element 3 had vehicles waiting, commandeered ISIS trucks, unmarked civilian vehicles, anything with wheels and an engine. Behind them, the electronics factory was coming apart. The AC-130 had done too much damage. The upper floors were collapsing. In 60 seconds, the entire structure would be rubble. Anyone still inside would be dead. Kira did a head count as rangers loaded. All 12 hostages. All 45 rangers. 0 casualties. Perfect execution. Element 3. Get these vehicles moving. Element 2 collapsed to the vehicles were Oscar Mike in 30 seconds. The rangers loaded with practiced efficiency. Hostages into the center vehicles surrounded by rangers for protection. More rangers in the lead and rear for security. Dugan was the last one into a vehicle before Kira. She climbed into the lead truck. The driver specialist Anderson, 26 from Michigan, looked at her. Where to, ma'am? Extraction point, 3 clicks west. Fast as this piece of shit will go. Don't stop for anything. The vehicle convoy pulled out, leaving the collapsing factory behind. They drove through the narrow streets of Mosul, headlights off using night vision, racing toward the designated extraction zone where the Blackhawks would meet them. 2 minutes into the drive, the radio crackled. Element 2's voice tense. Eagle actual, we have problems. Multiple technical vehicles approaching from the east. The reinforcements. They're moving to intercept. 6 vehicles, 60-plus fighters. They know we're here. Kira pulled up the tablet. This drone feed showed exactly what Element 2 reported: 6 technical vehicles with mounted machine guns, 60-plus ISIS fighters moving at high speed toward the extraction point. They would arrive at the same time as her convoy. It would be a massacre. Dugan in the back seat saw her expression. We can fight through it. We've got firepower. With 12 civilians against 60 fighters with mounted 50s, even with air support, casualties are unacceptable. We'd lose hostages. We'd lose rangers. She studied the map, calculated, made a decision. Element 2, Element 3 continued to primary extraction point. Element 1 were breaking off, taking the hostages to alternate landing zone. Ma'am, Dugan said carefully, there is no alternate landing zone. That's not in the plan. There is now, 2 clicks north, open area outside the city. We make our own landing zone. She keyed the radio. Reaper 6-1 Eagle actual, change of plans. I'm marking new extraction grid. November, Quebec 7512. Clear the area of any hostiles. Danger close authorized, whatever it takes. Eagle actual copy new grid. Be advised those technical vehicles are closing fast on your position. ETA to intercept 4 minutes. I see them. How long until they intercept my new route? 5 minutes, maybe 6. You'll be cutting it very close. Then I need you to slow them down. Target those technicals. Remove them from the equation. Make them stop chasing us. Copy, engaging. Kira directed her driver through narrow streets, taking turns at speed, pushing the vehicle to its limits. Behind them, the rest of Element 1 followed in 3 more trucks. Ahead, the city began to thin. Buildings became more scattered. The desert appeared like salvation. The AC-130's voice, Eagle, actual, engaging technicals now. In the distance, orange flashes appeared against the pre-dawn darkness. The gunship's 105mm howitzer, real heavy firepower, was hitting the ISIS convoy. Even from 2 clicks away, Kira could see the explosions. Secondary detonations as vehicles erupted in flames. 3 technicals destroyed, Reaper 6-1 reported. 3 still mobile and pursuing. They're determined, Eagle actual. They're not breaking off. Copy. We're approaching new extraction point. Request immediate landing of Blackhawks. Already en route, ETA 3 minutes. The convoy burst out of the city into open desert. Kira could see the extraction point ahead, a flat area maybe 200 meters across. Perfect for helicopters. Terrible for defense if ISIS arrived before exfil. They'd be completely exposed. All vehicles establish defensive perimeter hostages to the center. Prepare for contact. The trucks formed a rough circle. Rangers poured out, taking positions behind the vehicles, weapons oriented outward. The hostages huddled in the center, looking terrified, but grateful, understanding that freedom was minutes away if they could just survive a little longer. 1 minute passed. 2 minutes. In the distance, engine noise. The 3 remaining technical vehicles appeared on the road from the city, racing toward them at full speed. Reaper 6-1, I have 3 technicals approaching my position. Range 800 meters, enclosing fast. Engage at will. Keep them off us. Copy, engaging. The AC-130 opened fire. 40mm cannon rounds walked across the desert toward the technicals. The first truck exploded in a fireball that lit up the pre-dawn sky. The second swerved, trying to evade, but a 105mm round hit it dead center. Nothing remained but a crater and burning metal. The third technical stopped. Smart enemy commander. He knew he couldn't close the distance under that kind of fire. But he also knew once the helicopters left, the Rangers would be exposed. So he waited, calculating, planning. Then Kira heard it, the most beautiful sound in the world. Helicopter rotors. 4 Blackhawks came in low and fast from the west. They flared over the landing zone, landing in sequence. Dust billowed. Rangers began moving hostages toward the birds. Fast, efficient, professional. The technicals started moving again. Desperate rush. The driver knew this was his last chance. The mounted machine gun opened fire, 50 caliber rounds that could punch through the helicopter's skin, kill the pilots, destroy the engines. Kira grabbed the M110 sniper rifle from the truck bed. Went prone behind the vehicle, acquired the target through the scope. 800 yards. The technical was moving at approximately 30 miles per hour. Heat waves distorted the image, even in the pre-dawn darkness. Wind was gusting at 15 miles per hour from the northwest. She could hear the 50 cal firing, hear the rounds zipping overhead. No time for a perfect solution. She calculated in her head. Fast, instinctive. Years of training compressed into seconds. Lead 12 feet. Wind adjustment 4 minutes of angle. Elevation compensate for 48 inches of drop. Coriolis effect negligible at this range. She aimed at empty air at the space where the driver would be in 2 seconds based on current speed and trajectory. Exhaled halfway. Held it. Squeezed. Smooth trigger pull. Follow through. The rifle bucked. The round took 3.2 seconds to travel 800 yards through the air. Through the scope, she saw the driver's head snap back. The technical swerved violently, flipped, rolled 3 times in a cloud of dust and smoke, and came to rest on its side. The machine gun went silent. Dugan, watching through binoculars, lowered them slowly. Jesus Christ, ma'am. That was impossible. 800 yards, moving target, under fire, in bad light. That's impossible. Get everyone on those helicopters, Sergeant Major. Move. By the time she stood up, the last hostages were boarding. Rangers followed in organized sequence. Kira and Dugan were the last two. Always the leaders were last. Always. As they climbed into the Black Hawk, the crew chief gave her a thumbs up. That was some shooting man best shot I've ever seen. She didn't respond, just took a seat and closed her eyes as the helicopter lifted off. Below, the desert fell away. The burning technical, the destroyed factory, the city of Mosul receding into the distance. Mission accomplished. Across from her, Dugan sat with a strange expression on his face. When the helicopter leveled out at altitude, he leaned forward and spoke into her ear over the rotor noise. Captain Brennan, in 41 years, I have never, and I mean never, seen tactical coordination and marksmanship like what you demonstrated tonight. Your father was good, maybe the best I ever knew, but you, he paused. You're better. You're better than all of us. You're better than anyone I've ever served with. That's not flattery. That's fact. Kira opened her eyes, looked at him. Does that mean I've earned it, Sergeant Major? The respect? Ma'am, you've earned more than respect. You've earned something else. Something rarer. You've earned the right to be mentioned in the same sentence as the legends. As the Rangers who defined what excellence means. As the warriors people will talk about 50 years from now. He extended his hand. It's been an honor serving under your command, Captain Brennan. She took his hand, firm grip, mutual respect between warriors who'd seen combat together and survived, who'd faced death and prevailed. The honor is mine, Sergeant Major. And we're not done yet. We've got a long flight home. Dugan smiled, genuine, warm. Yes, ma'am, but the hard part is over. We got them all out, every last one. He leaned back against the bulkhead, his expression peaceful. Your father would be so damn proud, so damn proud. Around them, Rangers were settling in for the flight, some cleaning weapons, some checking on the hostages, offering water reassurance, quiet words of comfort, some just sitting quietly processing what they'd been through, what they'd accomplished, what it meant. Kira pulled her father's compass from her pocket, opened it, read the inscription again. True North honor duty country. She'd followed that north, into combat, into command, into a night where 45 men trusted her with their lives, and she brought them all home. She'd followed it into hell and back, and everyone survived. Mission accomplished. 0 casualties, 12 Americans freed. Perfect execution from start to finish. The Black Hawk flew west through the darkness, carrying its cargo of warriors, and rescued civilians towards safety. And in her seat, Captain Kira Brennan allowed herself a moment, just one moment, to feel what every commander feels after a successful mission. Pride, relief, validation, and the bone-deep exhaustion that comes from carrying the weight of command through the crucible of combat. But also something else, something new, the certainty that she belonged here, that she'd proven not just to Dugan, not just to her Rangers, but to herself that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, that her father's legacy lived on through her, that she'd honored his memory in the best way possible by being excellent, by being competent, by bringing everyone home. The sun was rising behind them, painting the desert gold and orange. A new day, a new chapter. And for Kira Brennan, a new identity forged in fire and validated in blood. She was a Ranger, a commander, a warrior. And she was just getting started. The debriefing room at Al Asad Air Base smelled of stale coffee and exhaustion. November 30, 2017. 0900 hours. Kira stood at the front, still in her combat uniform, dust from Mosul still clinging to her boots, the smell of gunpowder and smoke still in her hair. Lieutenant Colonel Stone sat at the conference table with 2 CIA officers and a State Department official. Behind them, a live video feed showed a room in the Pentagon where senior officers watched, where generals and colonels evaluated her performance, judged her decisions, determined her future. Stone spoke first. Captain Brennan, let's start with the result. Mission success. All 12 hostages recovered and safely returned. All Rangers returned without a single casualty. 0 friendly losses. Approximately 70 ISIS fighters killed or wounded. 1 major ISIS operational compound destroyed. From a tactical perspective, from any perspective, this was a textbook operation. Flawless execution. He paused. Now walk me through how you did it. Every decision, every adjustment. I want to understand your thought process. For the next 2 hours, Kira explained every decision with mathematical precision. The intelligence analysis that located the hostages using cell phone metadata cross-referenced with power consumption and thermal imaging. The adjusted infiltration route that avoided ISIS reinforcements. The decision to redirect to an alternate extraction point when the primary became compromised. The danger close fire missions calculated to the second. The 800-yard shot that disabled the final technical vehicle. The CIA officer, a woman in her 50s named Patterson, who'd been running operations in Iraq for 15 years, interrupted. Captain, you made multiple tactical adjustments in real time without consulting higher command. Changing extraction points. Calling fire missions within 50 meters of your own position. Taking a personal shot at 800 yards while under pressure with 50 caliber rounds coming at you. Those are extremely high-risk decisions. What gave you the confidence to make them? Not confidence, ma'am. Calculation. Math. Each decision was based on mathematical analysis of probability and risk. The primary extraction point had a 60% chance of contact with enemy reinforcements based on drone surveillance showing vehicle movement patterns, which would result in an estimated 40% casualty rate among hostages based on historical data from similar engagements. The alternate extraction point had a 90% chance of successful extraction with 10% casualty risk. The math was clear. The choice was obvious. You calculated that in combat while taking fire while responsible for 57 lives. Yes, ma'am, combat doesn't stop you from thinking. It just accelerates the timeline, forces you to make decisions faster. But the methodology remains the same. Assess, calculate, decide, execute. Stone leaned forward. And the shot 800 yards moving target under fire bad light conditions. That's the kind of shot most snipers wouldn't attempt. What made you think you could make it? Wind calculation took 2 seconds. Lead calculation another second. Elevation adjustment was automatic. I've made variations of that shot at that range 600 times in training under various conditions. The only variable was stress, which I accounted for by aiming center mass on the windshield instead of attempting a headshot. Lower precision requirement, higher success probability. It wasn't confidence. It was competence backed by repetition. The room was silent, the kind of silence that meant people were processing, reevaluating, understanding that they were witnessing something unusual, something rare. Then one of the Pentagon officers spoke through the video feed, a brigadier general whose name tape read Carson. Captain Brennan, we've reviewed your service record in detail. 143 airstrikes, called in your previous 17 missions, 143 successful engagements. Last night you added 5 more. Your accuracy rate is unprecedented in the history of modern combat aviation coordination. Your tactical decision-making is exceptional, and according to Sergeant Major Dugan's after-action report, which I've read 3 times, you personally engaged and neutralized multiple enemy combatants while simultaneously commanding company-level operations. The general paused. I've been doing this job for 28 years. I've evaluated thousands of operations. I've never seen a junior captain perform at this level, never. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. I'm recommending you for the Bronze Star with Valor device. Colonel Stone is recommending Sergeant Major Dugan for an Army Commendation Medal. There will be a ceremony in Baghdad in 2 weeks. Plan to be there. And Captain, the general's expression was serious. You've set a new standard. Don't let it go to your head. The next mission will be just as hard, just as dangerous. Excellence isn't a destination. It's a direction. Stay humble, stay hungry, stay excellent. Yes, sir. After the briefing ended, Kira walked out into the Iraqi sun. The heat was already brutal at 1100 hours. She found a shaded area behind the Tactical Operations Center and sat on an ammunition crate, finally allowing herself to process everything that had happened over the past 48 hours. The planning, the risk, the execution, the victory. They'd done it, against odds, against skepticism, against every doubt that had followed her since she'd taken command 3 weeks ago. Footsteps approached, Dugan carrying 2 bottles of water. He handed her one and sat down on another crate, groaning slightly as his 63-year-old knees protested. Hell of a night, Captain. Hell of a night, Sergeant Major. She opened the water and drank half of it in one long pull. How are the men? Good, tired, proud. They're talking about it already, about how we pulled off a perfect extraction against a numerically superior force in hostile urban terrain. You know how Rangers are. They're already embellishing the story, making it better, more dramatic. He smiled slightly. By next week, it'll be 300 ISIS fighters, and you'll have made that shot at 1,500 yards in a sandstorm while being chased by attack dogs. Kira laughed. It felt strange. Good. The release of tension she'd been holding for weeks. Let them talk. Let them tell stories, as long as they remember the real lesson, which is that mission success comes from preparation, precision, and trusting your people. Everything else is just noise, just theater. The fundamentals never change. Dugan was quiet for a moment. Then, your father used to say something similar. He'd say tactics win battles, but trust wins wars. He believed that the relationship between officers and NCOs was sacred. That mutual respect was the foundation of everything. That without trust, all the tactics in the world meant nothing. He looked at her. 3 weeks ago, I didn't trust you. Didn't think you had the experience, the judgment, the combat instinct, the ability to make life or death decisions under pressure. I was wrong. Completely wrong. You weren't wrong to test me, Sergeant Major. You were protecting your men. That's your That's what good NCOs do. They protect their soldiers from bad officers, from incompetent officers, from officers who will get them killed through stupidity or arrogance or inexperience. Maybe, but I let my assumptions about age and gender cloud my judgment about ability. That's on me. That's my failure. He set down his water bottle. I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you weeks ago. When your father died in Fallujah, when I couldn't reach him in time, I carried that guilt for years. Thought I failed him. Failed my promise to keep him safe. And when you showed up to take command, I think part of me saw it as a second chance. A chance to keep you safe the way I couldn't keep Declan safe. Sergeant Major, let me finish, ma'am. That instinct to protect you, it made me question your judgment. Made me doubt your decisions. Not because you were wrong, but because I was afraid. Afraid of losing Declan's daughter the way I lost Declan. Afraid of carrying that guilt again. That's not fair to you. That's not professional. That's personal weakness masquerading as professional judgment. He met her eyes. But last night, watching you command under fire, watching you make impossible decisions with absolute clarity, watching you adapt and overcome and triumph, I realized something. You don't need my protection. You never did. What you needed was my respect, my trust, and my commitment to following your orders without reservation or hesitation. Kira felt something in her chest tighten. You gave me all of that last night, Sergeant Major. When you backed my call to change extraction points, even though it wasn't in the plan, when you held that stairwell while I got the hostages out, when you trusted my tactical judgment, even when it went against 41 years of your experience and instincts. Because you earned it, ma'am. Completely. Totally. Without question. Without doubt. He stood, his joints creaking. I've got 3 more months until retirement. When I leave in January, I'm leaving knowing that this regiment is in good hands. Better hands than mine ever were. Better hands than most of the officers I've served under in 41 years. That's not true. It is true, and Declan knew it. That's what I haven't told you yet. The last thing your father said before he died. Dugan's voice became rough with emotion. Old pain surfacing. He said, Roland, I know you'll watch out for Kira, but don't get in her way. Don't let your love for me become an obstacle for her. She's going to be better than both of us. Better than anyone. Let her be great. Promise me. Those were his last words. Not about the mission, not about the war, not about tactics or strategy. About you, about your future, about what you could become if given the chance. Tears stung Kira's eyes. She blinked them back. He said that he did, and he was right. You are better. You're everything he hoped you'd be and more. You've exceeded every expectation, achieved things he would marvel at, proven yourself beyond any doubt. Dugan reached into his cargo pocket and pulled out a small package wrapped in brown paper, worn and creased from being carried for years. I was supposed to give this to you when you turned 18, but you enlisted at 17 with your mother's permission. Then you deployed before I could find you. Been carrying it for 3 years now, waiting for the right moment. Figured after last night, after proving yourself in combat, after bringing everyone home alive, figured it was time. Kira took the package with trembling hands, unwrapped it carefully, reverently. Inside was a leather-bound journal, worn-stained, filled with handwritten notes. Her father's handwriting. Precise. Methodical. The handwriting of a man who documented everything, who learned from every experience. That's his sniper logbook, Dugan said quietly. Every shot he ever made in combat. Every lesson he learned. Every technique he developed, every wind calculation, every range estimation, every hard-won piece of knowledge. He wanted you to have it, wanted you to learn from his experience, stand on his shoulders. He paused. He also left something in the back, said you'd understand when you were ready, said you'd know what it meant. Kira opened the journal to the last page, her hands shaking. There in her father's neat script, words written 13 years ago by a man who knew he might not come home. Kira, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I won't be there to see you grow up, to watch you graduate, to walk you down the aisle, to meet my grandchildren. But I need you to know something. From the moment you were born, I knew you were special, different, stronger than me, smarter than me, more capable, destined for greatness. Don't let anyone, especially not old stubborn sergeants, major like Roland, tell you that you can't do this. You can. You will. You're a Brennan. We don't quit. We don't fail. We don't accept limits. We lead from the front and we bring everyone home. That's who we are. That's our legacy. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I know wherever I am, I'm watching you make me even prouder. True north always. Dad. The tears came then, silent, unstoppable. 13 years of grief and determination and validation washing over her in waves. Kira closed the journal and held it against her chest, letting herself feel everything she'd suppressed since she was 14 years old. The loss, the pain, the drive to prove herself worthy of his sacrifice. And now finally the knowledge that she'd succeeded, that she'd honored his memory, that she'd made him proud. Dugan stood quietly, giving her the moment she needed, understanding that some things couldn't be rushed. Then gently, he'd be so damn proud of you, Kira. So damn proud he'd be bursting with it, probably annoying everyone around him, bragging about his daughter. She nodded, unable to speak through the tears, throat too tight for words. They stood there in the Iraqi heat, two warriors bound by shared loss and shared purpose, until finally Kira composed herself, wiped her eyes, took a deep breath. Thank you, Sergeant Major, for keeping this, for waiting until the right time, for being who my father needed you to be, and who I needed you to be, for testing me, for trusting me, for everything. Just doing my job, ma'am. Just doing what Declan asked me to do 13 years ago. Just keeping my promise to my best friend. The ceremony in Baghdad happened on December 15, 2017. A small affair by military standards. Maybe 50 people in attendance, mostly Rangers and support personnel. But it meant everything to those who were there. Lieutenant Colonel Stone pinned the Bronze Star with Valor device on Kira's uniform, while the assembled Rangers stood at attention in their dress uniforms, sweating in the Iraqi heat, proud of their commander. The citation read in part, for exceptionally valorous achievement in connection with combat operations against an armed enemy. Captain Brennan's tactical acumen, personal courage, and decisive leadership under fire resulted in the successful rescue of 12 American citizens and the elimination of significant enemy forces. Her actions reflect great credit upon herself, the 75th Ranger Regiment, and the United States Army. After the ceremony, the Rangers held an informal gathering. No officers except Kira, just NCOs and enlisted, the Brotherhood celebrating one of their own. They presented her with a custom-made Ranger scroll patch, her call sign Eagle, embroidered in silver threads surrounded by the unit insignia and the words Mosul 2017 beneath it. Staff Sergeant Webb, who'd been among the most skeptical at the start, made a short speech. His voice was rough with emotion. Ma'am, when you first took command, I'll be honest, I didn't think you'd last a week. Thought you were too young, too inexperienced, too different. I was wrong, dead wrong. What you did in Mosul wasn't just good tactics. It wasn't just competent leadership. It was art. You conducted that operation like Beethoven conducting a symphony. Every element in perfect harmony. Every decision precisely calculated. Every risk exactly measured. You brought us all home. Every single one of us. That's what matters. That's what makes you one of us. That's what earns respect that can never be taken away. The Rangers applauded, real applause, loud, sustained, no reservation, no qualification, full acceptance, complete respect. Kira stood and addressed them, her voice steady despite the emotion she felt. Gentlemen, I'm not going to give you a long speech. I'm just going to say this. You gave me a chance when you had every reason not to. You trusted me when trust had to be earned. You executed flawlessly under impossible circumstances. You are the reason that mission succeeded. Not me, not my planning, not my decisions. You. your professionalism, your competence, your courage. And I'm honored, truly honored, to have commanded you, to have served alongside you, to have been part of your brotherhood even briefly. She raised her water bottle. To the Rangers, to the mission, to bringing everyone home. Always. Rangers lead the way. They shouted in unison, raising their own drinks, their voices echoing off the concrete walls. That night, Kira and Dugan sat outside the barracks watching the Iraqi sky. The stars were brilliant, no light pollution this far from the cities, no smog, just pure celestial beauty. The kind of sky soldiers throughout history had watched on the night before battles, on the night after victories, on the nights when they contemplated mortality and meaning. Sergeant Major, Kira said quietly, what happens when you retire in January? What's next for Roland Dugan? I've been thinking about that. 41 years is a long time. Longer than most marriages. Longer than most careers. Part of me is ready to be done. Sleep in my own bed. Not hear gunfire. Not carry the weight. Not wonder if today's the day I don't come home. He paused. But another part of me knows I can't just walk away. This is who I am. What I am. It's in my blood. In my bones. So I've been considering options. Like what? Consulting work maybe. Training the next generation. Passing on what I've learned over 4 decades. Making sure the hard-won lessons don't die with my generation. He glanced at her. Why you worried I'll get bored and try to come back? Become one of those retired NCOs who hangs around causing trouble? No, I'm worried you'll retire and I'll lose the best advisor I've ever had. The person who taught me more about leadership in 3 weeks than 4 years at West Point. Dugan smiled. Captain, you don't need an advisor anymore. You've proven that beyond any doubt, but he trailed off, considering his words carefully. If you ever rotate back to Fort Benning, if you ever get assigned to the training command, and if you need someone who knows how to teach young Rangers the difference between competence and confidence, between knowledge and wisdom, between tactics and leadership, you let me know. I might be interested, might be willing to put off the fishing and golf for a while longer. I'll keep that in mind, Sergeant Major. I'll definitely keep that in mind. They sat in comfortable silence, 2 warriors at the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, understanding that some bonds forged in combat never break, never fade, never diminish with time or distance. Then Kira's satellite phone buzzed, or she checked it. Message from battalion. Urgent, new tasking, ISIS high-value target located Syria, 24-hour window. Brief 0600 tomorrow. CO requested specifically. Dugan requested if available. She showed Dugan the message. He read it and laughed, shaking his head. So much for rest and relaxation. So much for processing what we just went through. Another mission already. Apparently, Kira was already thinking through logistics. Personnel, equipment, timeline. Her mind shifting immediately into planning mode. Brief at 0600 means we deploy within 48 hours maximum. We'll need, Captain. Dugan interrupted gently. It's 2300 hours. You've been awake for 20 hours. The brief is in 7 hours. Go get some sleep. Whatever this mission is, it'll still be there in the morning. The planning can wait. You need rest. You're right. But she didn't move, her mind still racing through possibilities, calculations, scenarios. Sergeant Major, if this is another high-risk operation deep in enemy territory, I want you with me. I know you're close to retirement. I know you've earned your rest. I know you've got 3 months left and you could coast through them on safe assignments. But nothing, ma'am. If you need me, I'm there. One more mission. One more chance to work with the best combat leader I've ever served under. He stood, offered his hand. Now go get some rack time. That's an order from your senior NCO. Kira smiled, took his hand. Since when do you give me orders, Sergeant Major? Since you're too stubborn to take care of yourself and someone needs to. He pulled her to her feet. See you at 0600, Captain. See you at 0600, Sergeant Major. The mission brief came at dawn. A CIA officer laid it out with clinical precision. Abu Hassan al-Muhajir, known as the Engineer. ISIS's chief bomb maker. Mastermind behind 6 major attacks, including the Kabul bombing that killed 17 Marines in August. Intelligence placed him at a compound in eastern Syria, 40 kilometers from the Iraqi border. 20 to 30 fighters providing security. Underground bunker, hardened structure. 24-hour window before he moved to an unknown location, possibly Iran. JSOC was assembling a strike team. 12 operators, Kira's call sign, her mission design, her tactical plan, wheels up in 36 hours. She spent that day planning with obsessive attention to detail. studying satellite imagery frame by frame, analyzing approach routes considering terrain enemy positions, civilian presence, calculating force requirements based on expected resistance. At 1800 hours, she briefed the team, Dugan 10 Rangers from her company, and all volunteers, and all experienced, and all understanding. This was voluntary and dangerous. Gentlemen, this is a kill or capture mission. Strong preference is capture. The engineer has intelligence on 40 ISIS cells across 3 countries that could save hundreds of American lives. But if capture is not feasible, if he resists, if he threatens our force, we eliminate the target without hesitation. Questions. Specialist Morrison raised his hand. Ma'am, infiltration method. MH-47 Chinook, Napa the Earth flight profile to avoid detection. Insertion 5 kilometers from target. Foot movement across open terrain. No vehicles too noisy, too visible, too vulnerable to IEDs. We go in quiet, we move fast, we hit hard, we extract clean. Staff Sergeant Burke. Rules of engagement. Anyone who raises a weapon dies. Anyone who surrenders gets restrained and evacuated for interrogation. Civilians present. We exercise maximum restraint. This is Syria. There might be families, women, children. But make no mistake, this is a combat operation deep in hostile territory with no quick reaction force, no cavalry riding to the rescue. You are authorized to use whatever force is necessary to protect yourselves and accomplish the mission. Survival first, mission second. Everything else is negotiable. The brief continued for 2 hours. Every contingency, every detail, every risk factor. When it ended, the Rangers filed out with grim determination, understanding this was the kind of mission that defined careers or ended them. Dugan lingered after everyone left. Captain, this is high risk, higher than Mosul. We're going deep into Syrian territory. No air support except emergency extraction. No quick reaction force. No backup. If things go wrong, then we adapt. We improvise. We overcome. We survive. She met his eyes. Sergeant Major, this is what we do. This is why we exist. To go into the worst places and eliminate the worst people. The engineer has killed hundreds of coalition forces and civilians. If we don't stop him, he'll kill hundreds more, maybe thousands. That's not acceptable. I know, just be careful. Your father took risks, calculated risks, smart risks. But the one time he miscalculated, the one time he got it wrong, it cost him everything. Cost him his life. Cost him watching you grow up. Cost him being here now to see what you've become. I'm not my father, Sergeant Major. I'm more careful, more precise, more analytical, more paranoid. I don't rely on instinct alone. I verify, I cross-check, I confirm, I plan for failure. And when I say I'm confident, that's not bravado. That's preparation. Dugan nodded slowly. Fair enough. Then let's go show the engineer what happens when he messes with Americans. Let's make him regret every bomb he ever built. They deployed January 14, 2018. The MH-47 Chinook flew low across the Syrian desert rotors, beating against the cold night air, pilots using night vision and terrain-following radar to stay hidden from enemy air defenses. 12 Rangers sat in 2 rows weapons ready, faces painted, night vision mounted, each man silent with his own thoughts about what was coming. The crew chief held up 5 fingers. 5 minutes to insertion. Kira ran through the plan one last time in her head, visualizing every step, every decision point, every contingency. Insertion. 5-kilometer movement using a dry wadi for concealment. Approach from the south. Split into 2 elements. Element 1, her element with Dugan, and 5 others would assault the compound. Element 2 would provide overwatch and security, watching their backs, ready to extract if everything went wrong. The Chinook flared, touched down in a cloud of dust. The ramp dropped. Go, go, go. They poured out into the desert night. The helicopter lifted off immediately, disappearing into the darknesses, leaving them alone deep in enemy territory. Syria, a country where American forces weren't supposed to be, a country where capture meant torture and execution, a country where there were no rules, no Geneva Convention, no prisoners of war, only victors and victims. Silence returned, broken only by wind and the distant barking of dogs in unseen villages. Kira oriented using GPS and the star's old navigation methods, still reliable when technology might fail. Element 1 on me. Element 2 established position here at this grid. We're moving in 10 minutes. Comms check every 30 minutes. If we don't check in, extract without us. Ma'am, one of Element 2 started to protest. That's an order. If this goes bad, someone needs to get home and report what happened. No heroes, no last stands. Mission first. Understood. Yes, ma'am. The movement took 90 minutes. Slow, careful, professional. They used the dry riverbed for concealment, staying low, moving in tactical formation, avoiding skylining themselves against ridges. Every 50 meters they stopped, listened, watched, ensured no one was tracking them, no ambush was being prepared. At 0330 hours, they reached the final position, a low-rise 800 meters from the target compound. Kira glassed it through night vision. Two-story structure, concrete walls, flat roof with 2 sentries visible, both alert, both armed with AK-47s. Perimeter fence. 3 technical vehicles parked outside. Heat signatures showed approximately 25 bodies inside the structure. Lower than Intel estimated. That was concerning. Either Intel was wrong or fighters had departed. Element 2 in position. Affirmative. 2 sniper teams ready. We have eyes on target. Copy. Stand by. She turned to Dugan, her voice barely a whisper. Same as Mosul. Fast and violent. Breaching charge on the main door. Flashbangs first. Clear room by room. The engineer will be in the basement. All high-value targets hide underground where they feel safe. We get him and we get out. 30 minutes maximum. Any longer and we risk enemy reinforcements. And if it goes wrong, then we fight our way out and call for emergency extraction. Then we pray the helicopter makes it in time. She checked her watch. Execute in 5 minutes. Final checks. Make peace with whatever God you believe in. This is the real thing. The Rangers checked weapons one last time, adjusted kit prepared mentally for combat. Kira felt the familiar pre-combat sensation, heightened awareness, slowed time, absolute focus. The world narrowing to mission parameters and survival calculations. This is what she trained for, what she existed for, what her father had prepared her for since she was 8 years old. At exactly 0345, she keyed her radio. All elements execute, execute, execute. They moved. Fast. Element 2's sniper teams engaged the roof sentries, 2 suppressed shots, 2 bodies dropping silently like puppets with cut strings. Element 1 sprinted across open ground toward the compound entrance, 800 meters of open terrain where one alert guard could end the mission with a single burst of automatic fire. But there were no alerts, no shots. They'd achieved complete surprise. Morrison hit the door with a breaching charge. The explosion was sharp, controlled, professional. The door blew inward in a shower of splinters. Kira tossed a flashbang through the opening without breaking stride, waited for detonation. Then she was inside M4, up moving with absolute precision, born of thousands of hours of training. The compound erupted. ISIS fighters responding to the breach, grabbing weapons, shouting in Arabic, trying to organize a defense. But they were too slow, too confused, too unprepared for Rangers moving through their home like ghosts of death. Gunfire, shouting, chaos. But Kira and her Rangers moved through it all with terrifying efficiency, clearing rooms, eliminating threats, controlled aggression backed by superior training and absolute commitment. They fought room by room, floor by floor. The Rangers were flawless, every movement practiced 10,000 times, every action decisive, every shot precise. Within 10 minutes, the upper floors were secure. 15 ISIS fighters dead, 0 Ranger casualties. Perfect execution so far. Basement access located, Dugan called from across the compound. They stacked on the stairwell. Heavy door, reinforced steel, professional security. This was it. This was where high-value targets hid when the shooting started. Morrison placed a thermite charge carefully, precisely. The metal began to glow orange, then white, then began to melt and drip. The smell of burning metal filled the air. 10 seconds. The door fell inward, hinges, destroyed by 3,000-degree heat. Kira led the way down into darkness. The basement was a warren of rooms and corridors. They cleared methodically, professionally. Storage rooms filled with weapons and ammunition. Communications center with sophisticated equipment. And then at the end of the corridor, a final door. Light visible underneath. Someone was home. She kicked it open, M4 raised and ready. Inside, a man in his 50s, sitting calmly at a desk as if he'd been expecting them. Clean-shaven, well-dressed, calm. The engineer. Abu Hassan al-Muhajir. The man responsible for hundreds of deaths. Abu Hassan al-Muhajir, Kira said, her voice steady. You're under arrest. Hands on your head. Now. You're American, he replied in accented but fluent English. A woman soldier. How interesting. How very progressive. Tell me, does your country send women to do men's work now because all your men are cowards? Flex cuff him, Kira ordered, ignoring the provocation. Two Rangers moved forward, restraining the engineer with zip-tie handcuffs, searching him for weapons or suicide devices. Mission accomplished. Package secure, beginning exfil now. They moved quickly, back upstairs, out through the compound, across open ground to the extraction point. Behind them, the compound burned. Element 2 had placed thermite grenades before withdrawing, destroying evidence, eliminating intelligence value. At the extraction point, 800 meters away, Kira called for the Chinook. Lancer 6-5, Eagle Actual. Package secure. Request immediate pickup. Landing zone is cold. No enemy contact. Eagle Actual inbound. ETA 4 minutes. They formed a defensive perimeter, weapons oriented outward. The engineer sat in the center, calm despite his captivity, as if none of this concerned him. He looked at Kira with something like amusement. "You're very young to command such men," he said conversationally. "And you're very old to still be building bombs that kill children. Doesn't change the outcome. You're done." "Perhaps not. But tell me, do you know how many of your people I've killed? Do you count them 17 Marines in Kabul, 32 civilians in Baghdad, 41 coalition forces across 6 attacks? Do their faces haunt you? Do you see them when you sleep?" "I know exactly how many," Kira replied, her voice cold. "That's why you're coming with us, to answer for all of it, to spend the rest of your life in a cell thinking about every life you destroyed." The engineer smiled coldly. "You think capturing me matters? I'm one man. The cause continues. More engineers, more bombs, more martyrs. You cannot stop an idea with bullets and handcuffs." "Maybe not, but tonight you're done, and that's enough for me." The Chinook appeared, landing in a storm of dust and noise. They loaded the engineer aboard, then followed, weapons, still ready, still alert. Liftoff. The desert fell away below. Syria disappeared into the darkness. Mission accomplished. Another terrorist removed from the battlefield. As they crossed back into Iraqi airspace, Dugan sat down next to Kira. He didn't say anything for several minutes, just sat there, a quiet presence. Finally, after 10 minutes of flight, he spoke, his voice thoughtful. "That was my last mission, Captain. My very last one. 41 years of service, ending with a perfect operation. And I couldn't have asked for a better way to end it all, a better commander to serve under, a better mission to complete." He paused. "Thank you for letting me be part of this, part of your story, part of history. Thank you for being part of mine, Sergeant Major. I literally couldn't have done any of this without you, without your trust, without your support, without you believing in me when no one else did. Yes, you could have, but I'm glad I was here to see it, to witness what you've become, what you'll become." He looked at the engineer, restrained and guarded by 2 Rangers. "We got him. Together, one last target eliminated, one last mission complete, one last victory before I hang up the uniform." "One last mission," Kira agreed. "Now you can finally retire in peace, finally rest, finally be done with war." "Peace," Dugan smiled, but there was sadness in it. "Not sure I know what that looks like anymore after 41 years. But I'm willing to find out, willing to try being a civilian again, willing to see if there's life after the uniform." 6 months passed. July 15, 2018. Fort Benning, Georgia. The sun was brutal, even at 0900 hours, the parade ground shimmering with heat waves. But 300 Rangers stood at attention in their dress uniforms, sweat running down their faces as Sergeant Major Roland Dugan's retirement ceremony began. 41 years of service ending, an era concluding. The division commander spoke first, recounting a legendary career, 41 years of service, 17 deployments spanning 4 decades of conflict, 6 Purple Hearts, 3 Bronze Stars, 2 Silver Stars, a Distinguished Service Cross, a career that spanned generations of conflict and defined what it meant to be a Ranger, what it meant to be a warrior, what it meant to dedicate your life to something larger than yourself. Then Dugan took the podium. He looked out at the assembled formation, at the Rangers he'd trained, the officers he'd served under, the legacy he was leaving behind. His voice was strong, steady, clear. 41 years ago, he began, I enlisted because I wanted to serve, wanted to be part of something bigger than myself, wanted to test myself against the hardest challenges the Army could offer, wanted to know if I had what it took to be a Ranger. And for 4 decades, that's exactly what I got." He paused. "I've served with the finest soldiers America has ever produced, men who embodied courage, competence, and commitment, officers who led from the front and never asked their troops to do anything they wouldn't do themselves, NCOs who were the backbone of every unit, every mission, every victory. He looked directly at Kira standing in the front row in her dress uniform, Major's oak leaves now on her shoulders, after a promotion that came through in June. But in all those years, across all those deployments, working with all those leaders, I've only served under 5 officers who I'd call truly exceptional. Officers who changed how I understood leadership, who showed me that excellence has no ceiling, who proved that the next generation can surpass the previous one if given the chance, if given the opportunity, if given the respect they deserve. His voice strengthened. Captain Declan Brennan was one of those officers. He was my best friend, my brother, the finest ranger I knew. When he died in 2004, I thought I'd never serve under anyone like him again. I thought that kind of excellence, that kind of leadership, that kind of officer was gone forever. He smiled slightly warmly. I was wrong. Major Kira Brennan, yes, she was promoted to major last month at age 28, is everything her father was and more. In the 3 months I served under her command, she demonstrated tactical brilliance that exceeded anything I've witnessed in 4 decades. Personal courage under fire that inspired everyone around her. Leadership that balanced confidence with humility, strength with compassion, decisiveness with wisdom. She brought every single ranger home from 2 of the most dangerous missions I've ever participated in, Mosul and Syria. Perfect execution. 0 casualties. That's not luck. That's excellence. He paused. She called airstrikes with precision that defies belief. She made 800-yard shots under fire that shouldn't be possible. She commanded with a perfect balance of confidence and humility that defines great leadership. His voice became passionate, emotional. Gentlemen, the 75th Ranger Regiment is in exceptional hands because Major Brennan represents the future of leadership in this army, a future where excellence is measured not by age, gender, or background, but by competence, courage, and results, by performance under pressure, by the ability to bring everyone home. That's what matters. That's what leadership means. And that's what Major Brennan delivers every single time. The Rangers erupted in applause, loud, sustained, genuine, heartfelt. Kira felt her eyes burn, but refused to let tears fall. Not here, not now. Stay professional. Stay composed. Honor him by being strong. After the ceremony, after the photographs and handshakes and well wishes, she found Dugan in the reception area. He was surrounded by Rangers, all wanting to shake his hand, to thank him, to wish him well in retirement, to say goodbye to a legend. When he saw her, he excused himself politely and walked over. Major Brennan, congratulations on the promotion. Well deserved. Long overdue, actually. Thank you, Sergeant Major, and congratulations on your retirement. Even more well deserved. You've earned your rest. They stood there awkwardly for a moment, 2 warriors who'd been through combat together, trying to find words for goodbye. Then Dugan pulled an envelope from his dress uniform jacket. Before I officially retire, before I become a civilian, I have something for you. From your father. He left it with me in 2004 with very specific instructions that I was to give it to you only after you'd proven yourself in combat and achieved field grade rank major or above. Took 14 years, but here we are. You've more than earned it. Kira took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a single piece of paper, yellowed slightly with age. Her father's handwriting, written 13 years ago. Kira, if you're reading this, you've done it. You've proven yourself beyond any doubt. You've earned your rank through competence and courage, not through your name or connections. Roland wouldn't give you this unless you demonstrated excellence in combat leadership under fire and the character that defines great officers. I'm so proud of you, prouder than words can express, prouder than I ever thought possible. Now comes the harder part, staying excellent. Anyone can be great for one mission, for one moment. The true test is being great for an entire career, for decades, for a lifetime. Don't let success make you complacent. Don't let rank make you soft. Don't let praise make you arrogant. Stay hungry. Stay humble. Stay committed to bringing everyone home. That's the Brennan way. That's the Ranger way. That's the only way that matters. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I know you'll do things I never dreamed possible. Things that will change this regiment. Things that will inspire generations. True North always. Your father, Declan. Kira read it twice, 3 times, then carefully folded it and put it in her pocket next to the compass, the 2 most precious items she owned. He was right about you, Dugan said quietly, about everything, every prediction, every hope, every dream. You've exceeded every expectation, done things he would marvel at, become someone he would be honored to call his daughter. And you're just getting started, just beginning. The best is yet to come. What about you, Sergeant Major? What's next? Or really, what does Roland Duggan do after 41 years of being a warrior? Funny you should ask, he smiled. I've accepted a consulting position at Ranger School, civilian instructor, starting in September, teaching the next generation of Rangers about leadership tactics and the difference between confidence and competence, between knowledge and wisdom, between tactics and leadership, between being a good soldier and being a great Ranger. He paused. And I've been authorized to bring in guest instructors for special topics. Combat leaders with recent operational experience, people who can teach lessons that only come from real missions, real combat, real decisions under fire. People who've proven themselves. Are you asking me to teach? I'm asking if you'd be interested when you rotate back stateside for good, when your combat deployments are done. When you're ready to pass on what you've learned to Rangers who need to hear it from someone who's lived it, who's done it, who's proven it in blood and fire and combat. Kira didn't hesitate even for a second. Yes, absolutely yes. It would be an honor. When the time comes when the Army releases me from combat rotations, I'll be there, I promise. Good, outstanding. Because those kids need to hear your story, need to see living proof that excellence comes in all forms, that the future of this regiment is bigger and better than its past, that there are no limits except the ones we impose on ourselves through fear and prejudice and narrow-mindedness. He extended his hand formally, ceremonially. It's been an honor, Major Brennan, one of the great honors of my career, one of the privileges of my life. She took his hand, held it firmly. The honor was mine, Sergeant Major Duggan. All mine. Every bit of it. I'm who I am because of what you taught me. The officer I've become exists because you gave me the chance to prove myself. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just keep being excellent. Keep raising the standard. Keep showing everyone what's possible when talent meets opportunity. That's all the thanks I need. 18 months later, January 2020, Ranger School, Fort Benning, Georgia. 200 candidates stood at attention in the cold morning air, breath-steaming bodies trembling from exhaustion and nerves. New class, new Rangers trying to earn the tab. The future of the regiment standing before them. Roland Duggan stood at the front in civilian clothes, cargo pants, Ranger School instructor polo baseball cap, with the scroll embroidered above the brim. At 65, he was as fit as men half his age, more fit than some of the candidates standing before him. Teaching had energized him, given him purpose beyond the uniform, given him a reason to stay sharp, stay fit, stay engaged with the mission even after retirement. Behind him, Major Kira Brennan stood in her dress uniform, 30 years old now, battalion executive officer. 2 more combat deployments under her belt since in Syria. A Silver Star to go with her Bronze Star. A reputation that had spread throughout Special Operations Command like wildfire, the officer who never lost a Ranger, never missed a target, never accepted anything less than perfection. The officer who did impossible things and made them look routine. Gentlemen, Duggan began, his voice carrying across the formation with the authority of 4 decades of command. Many of you are skeptical about Major Brennan as a guest instructor today. You're looking at her thinking too young, too female, too different from what you expected. I was 2-3 years ago when she took command of my Ranger company. I was wrong, dead wrong. And if you're smart, if you're truly here to learn, you'll learn from my mistake, instead of making it yourselves and wasting valuable time and energy on stupid prejudice. He turned and gestured to Kira with obvious pride and respect. Major Brennan has commanded Rangers in combat, multiple deployments, multiple missions. She's conducted hostage rescues that are now taught as case studies at Fort Leavenworth, high-value target missions that remain classified but saved American lives, operations that changed the tactical picture in 3 countries. She's called more successful airstrikes than most JTACs achieve in entire careers, over 200 perfect missions without a single friendly fire incident. She's made shots that shouldn't be possible under conditions that would break most people. But more than that, and this is what really matters, she's brought every single Ranger who served under her command home alive. 100% success rate, 0 friendly combat deaths. That's not luck, that's excellence, that's leadership. That's what you're here to learn. He stepped aside. Kira moved forward, standing before 200 skeptical faces, 200 men who doubted her, 200 futures waiting to be forged or broken. Rangers, she said, her voice clear and commanding, projecting strength without shouting. Ranger School is about proving yourself, about demonstrating that you have the toughness, the skill, and the commitment to earn the tab. It's not about your gender, your age, your background, your connections, your family name. It's about whether you can perform when everything hurts, when you're exhausted, when quitting would be easier than continuing, when every fiber of your being is screaming at you to stop. She paused, letting the words sink in. My father graduated Ranger School in 1989, class 1089. He told me the hardest part wasn't the physical challenge, wasn't the sleep deprivation, wasn't the hunger or cold or exhaustion. It was the mental challenge, pushing through when your body says stop, making decisions when your brain is fogged with exhaustion, leading when you have nothing left to give. That's what separates Rangers from everyone else. The willingness to find something more, to dig deeper, to refuse to accept limits, to never quit no matter what. She held up her father's compass, the brass catching the morning sunlight. This belonged to Colonel Declan Brennan. He carried it on every deployment, every mission, every time he went downrange into harm's way. The inscription says, True North Honor Duty Country. Those aren't just words. They're not a slogan. They're not marketing. They're a commitment, a promise that you'll uphold the highest standards, that you'll bring your people home, that you'll be worthy of the tab you're trying to earn, that you'll carry on a tradition that goes back 78 years to the Rangers who stormed Normandy on D-Day. She looked out at the 200 candidates, seeing past their skepticism to their potential. Some of you will fail, most of you actually. The statistics are brutally clear. Roughly 60% of you won't earn the tab. You'll quit or be dropped for not meeting standards. But the ones who succeed, the ones who earn the tab, you'll join a brotherhood that spans generations. You'll carry on a tradition that started in World War II and continues today. You'll become Rangers, and that matters. Because when Americans are in trouble, when hostages need rescue, when evil needs elimination, Rangers are who the nation calls. Rangers are who get the mission. Rangers are who make the impossible possible. She paused one final time, her voice dropping to something quieter but more intense. Sergeant Major Dugan graduated Ranger School in 1978, 42 years ago. I graduated in 2015, 5 years ago. The standards haven't changed. The difficulty hasn't decreased. The tab still means the same thing it always has, that you refuse to quit when quitting would have been easier. That you have earned the right to call yourself a Ranger. That you have proven yourself worthy of the legacy. She stepped forward, closing the distance to the formation. Who's ready to earn it? Who's ready to prove themselves? Who's ready to become a Ranger? Silence for 3 seconds. Then unified, powerful, certain, the shout of 200 men committing themselves. Rangers, lead the way. Kira smiled. The same smile her father must have smiled 30 years ago when he stood in front of his own Ranger class. The same pride, the same commitment, the same unwavering belief that the next generation would be even better than the last if given the chance, the training, the leadership they deserved. Behind her, Dugan watched with satisfaction that went soul deep. The circle was complete. The legacy transferred. The tradition continued. 3 generations of excellence converging in this moment. Declan Brennan, who'd shown what courage looked like. Roland Dugan, who'd shown what loyalty meant. And Kira Brennan, who'd proven that excellence has no limits, no boundaries, no restrictions except the ones we impose on ourselves. That afternoon, after the class dismissed to begin their first brutal training exercise, Kira and Dugan stood together on a hill overlooking the training area, watching the candidates run, struggle, push themselves beyond what they thought possible. Some would make it. Most wouldn't. But all of them would be changed by the attempt. Your father would be so damn proud, Dugan said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. So damn proud he'd be insufferable, probably telling everyone who'd listen about his daughter. I hope so, Kira replied softly. I hope I'm honoring his legacy, living up to what he wanted, making his sacrifice mean something. You are. Trust me, you've exceeded it. You've become something he dreamed about, but never quite achieved, a leader so good that even skeptics become believers. A warrior so competent that doubters become followers. An officer so excellent that the impossible becomes routine. That's rare. Special. Maybe once in a generation. They stood in comfortable silence, 2 warriors who'd been through hell together and come out stronger, bound by something deeper than words, stronger than time, more permanent than rank or uniform. The bond forged in combat, the trust built under fire, the respect earned through shared danger and shared triumph. Finally, Dugan spoke again, his voice thoughtful. You know what the best part of all this is, the thing that makes it all worthwhile? What? 20 years from now, some young ranger is going to stand where you're standing right now. They're going to tell their story. They're going to inspire the next class. And when someone asks who taught them, who showed them what excellence looks like, who proved that there are no limits, he smiled warm and genuine. They're going to say Major Kara Brennan, and the cycle continues. Excellence transferring from generation to generation. Declan to me to you to them. That's immortality. That's legacy. That's what matters. That's what your father achieved through you, and what you'll achieve through them. Kira looked at the compass in her hand, worn smooth from years of carrying it, from years of drawing strength from it, from years of following its guidance. She thought about her father, about the IED that killed him, about the promise he'd made Dugan keep, about the 13 years she'd spent proving herself worthy, about the moment in Mosul when everything changed, about the night in Syria when she'd captured the engineer, about every mission, every decision, every risk that had brought her to this moment. True North, she said softly, almost a prayer. Honor, duty, country. True North, Dugan agreed, his voice equally reverent. Now and forever, through every generation, through every challenge, through every war, the principles don't change, the standards don't lower, the legacy continues. The sun was setting over Fort Benning, painting the sky, the color of brass and blood and fire. Another day ending, another chapter closing, but the story continued, would always continue, because Rangers never quit, never stop, never accept anything less than excellence. And as long as there were leaders like Kira Brennan carrying the torch forward, teaching the next generation, inspiring warriors not yet born, the 75th Ranger Regiment would remain what it had always been, the finest fighting force America had ever produced. The standard by which all others were measured, the example that inspired excellence in every soldier who wore the uniform. Down below, one of those Ranger candidates stumbled under the weight of his pack, caught himself, kept moving, refused to quit even though every muscle screamed and every joint ached and his lungs burned like fire. That one, Dugan said, pointing, he'll make it. How do you know? Because he didn't look back, didn't check to see if anyone noticed his stumble. He just got up and kept moving forward. That's the secret, you know. Not the tactics, not the marksmanship, not even the courage. It's the refusal to look back, the commitment to keep moving forward no matter what. That's what makes Rangers. That's what makes warriors. That's what makes excellence possible. Kira nodded slowly, understanding flowing through her like revelation. She'd been looking back, always looking back, comparing herself to her father, measuring herself against his memory, seeking validation from a ghost. But Dugan was right. It was time to stop looking back. Sergeant Major, she said quietly, thank you for everything, for testing me, for trusting me, for showing me what I needed to become, for giving me the chance to prove myself, for being the bridge between my father and who I am now. You became it on your own, Major. I just got out of the way and let excellence happen. He extended his hand one final time. Now go teach them. Make them better than us. Make them better than your father. Make them better than you. That's how progress happens. That's how excellence transfers. That's how legends are born. She took his hand. Firm grip. Final salute between warriors. Between mentor and student. Between past and future. Then Dugan walked away. Down the hill. Toward the parking lot. Toward retirement. Toward whatever came next after 41 years of war. He didn't look back. Didn't wave. Didn't turn around for one last glance. Just walked forward, embodying his own lesson, demonstrating what he'd just taught. Kira watched him go until he disappeared from sight. Then she turned to face the Ranger candidates below, 200 men who would either earn the tab or break trying, 200 futures waiting to be forged in fire and exhaustion and refusal to quit. She pulled out her father's compass one last time, opened it, read the inscription that had guided her for 13 years. True North, honor, duty, country. Not a destination, a direction, a commitment to keep moving forward, to keep pushing higher, to keep refusing to accept limits. She closed the compass, slipped it into her pocket. Then she walked down the hill toward the candidates, her shadow stretching behind her in the dying light, growing longer as the sun set, a symbol of legacy extending from past to future. Tomorrow they would train, tomorrow they would struggle, tomorrow some would quit and some would persevere, and all of them would learn what it truly meant to be a Ranger. But tonight, as the sun set over Fort Benning and the sky blazed with the colors of fire and blood and glory, three legacies converged in perfect harmony. Declan Brennan, who'd shown what courage looked like. Roland Dugan, who'd shown what loyalty meant, and Kira Brennan, who'd proven that excellence has no limits, no boundaries, no restrictions except the ones we impose on ourselves through fear and doubt and narrow-mindedness. The torch had been passed from generation to generation, from father to friend to daughter, each carrier adding their own flame, their own light, their own contribution to an eternal fire that would never be extinguished. The mission would continue. The standard would rise. The legacy would endure. And somewhere in the Georgia dusk, if you listened carefully with the ears of history and heritage, you could almost hear the whisper of 41 years of service, 13 years of grief, and 3 weeks of proving herself, all culminating in a single eternal truth that echoed across generations. Rangers lead the way. Not because they're told to, not because they're ordered to, but because they refuse to do anything else. Always forward, never back. True North, forever.